Ladies and gentlemen, we are now gathered to induct the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. But in many ways, the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame is the godfather. Not only is he the godfather of the backyard wrestling circuit in many ways, but really the origins of this platform. Because when you think about this community that it was built, I go back to the date June 16th, 2009. And on that date, it was sort of the formations of a radical movement that wound up forming a thing called the Global Backyard Wrestling News. And it turned into a network. That network had 80 plus promotions at one time. And it even called home for an individual you see all the time in AEW named Will Ospreay. The GBYWN was a host of countries and wrestlers from all over the world: Australia, Western Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and of course, up and down the United States, where wrestlers were given an opportunity to connect, to collaborate, and to truly bring the backyard to a place that it hadn't been before. All of that was because, well, our guest was that host. He was the host of the Global Backyard Wrestling News, and it was a weekly show, and it showcased many of the best, some of the very best in the backyard, such as Sin, Matt DeMorris, Tim Lee once upon a time, Ryan Ragnock. It's a long list of names that we can go up and down the backyard wrestling circuit. And this guest, who was called Rad Hazard in those days, all the way from Viva, Las Vegas, would give us those news. He would give us those events, and we would find out. And in many ways, he himself wound up becoming the news. He wound up becoming the news, and he wound up becoming a huge star in his own right in the ring, a part of the GBYWN, where he was a leader of a movement. And although he described it one time that, could you kill backyard wrestling? Well, obviously that answer was no, even though he himself led a movement. And it even led to a movement on July 7th, 2012, that a man I'm wearing a shirt of right now, Sean Jovi, wrestled on the same side as then Rad Hazard. And even once upon a time, there was a person, Remy Ravage, who was even a part of the Global Backyard Wrestling Network. And she was a part of all of those things in a different time. And our guest traveled up and down the United States. Everybody talked about what was going to happen or what didn't happen or where were we going next, and all the stuff that in many ways, ladies and gentlemen, we talk about today in this platform over the past 2 years that has been transformed and has given people the opportunity to connect with others, to go out there and wrestle, and to go out and do the things that once upon a time the Global Backyard Wrestling Network was able to do. And it transformed the careers of many people. Some who wound up going and having very successful careers in the independents. Our guest here is a part of that. Others went to AEW, MLW. In one case, there was Skrilla, who wound up being a part of Peanut Butter Falcon and being a part of a music video. And there's this guy, Copper Dragon, who does TikTok videos, and some people call him Dave Meltzer. And so many people got an opportunity to keep that dream alive. So many people got a chance to live on. Now, sure, there was a video a few months ago that kind of in some ways poked fun at what the Global Backyard Wrestling Network was. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't think there was anything to poke fun at, because I'm reminded of a song, the lyrics from a Phil Collins song, Somewhere Before in Heaven. And those lyrics stated that we've got our problems, but I'll always be by your side. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, in many ways, whether he knew it or not, He heard people's problems in the Global Backyard Wrestling Network, but he was always at the end of the day on people's sides, whether you didn't see it in the ring or not, because he certainly did a lot in his own right. Global Backyard Wrestling Network, United States champion, and held a slew of other championships and traveled up and down the United States. Sean Jovi found that out firsthand, and ICW, MVW, all that stuff. But the fact is that Rad Dad is Rad Hazard. He heard the community's problems, and he did his best to keep people going and to keep people alive. And in many ways, we're celebrating the Global Backyard Wrestling News and its network later this month in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that history as well. But there's no question, ladies and gentlemen. Sure, you see our guest today is Rad Dad Radley Belmont. He's one of the stepdads, and you've seen him in GTS. He's held the GTS Intercontinental Championship. He's feuded with, obviously, Grimm, Mikey Anarchy, who's no stranger to this show, Jimmy Controversy, Tarzan Duran, who was here recently. But the truth is, sure, he's wrestled the Rock and Roll Express to boot. He's wrestled, who's the owner of EBW again? He plays like 18 different characters. I mean, the who's who of people that he's wrestled up and down the independent circuit. But when I think about this platform, I truly think that his home will forever be in the backyard and underground wrestling circuit as Rad Hazard. Sure, he's gone on to have, again, his match with Grimm had nearly 3,100 people live watching that match a few months ago. Again, the Rock and Roll Express. He's even got tights that look like Ric Flair's. And, oh, by the way, he just got engaged. I mean, certainly, I guess he might be listening to that Phil Collins song right before he goes into heaven because, well, he's really going to get married. That's probably he's much more happier about that than being here tonight. But the facts are, ladies and gentlemen, is that our guest, without today's Yarders even knowing it, he is the reason we're all here. All the companies that come on this platform, whether you're IMF, whether you're Tennessee Backyard Wrestling, whether you're WCE, whether you're NEW, whether you're Legendary Backyard Wrestling, the Backyard Wrestling Network, the Alliance Wrestling League, the Backyard Wrestling Nexus, YBW, XCW, DBW, all these companies that come onto this platform, TF Crew, which, oh, by the way, our guest actually wrestles for. All these different companies, ALW, Resurrection Wrestling, whether you're fans of these companies or not, without even knowing it, they wouldn't be here without Rad Hazard, a.k.a. Rad Dad Radley Belmont. And I could see now it's starting to be a fuller house. Yes, I could certainly see that for sure. I would have much rather have seen Candace Cameron here rather than our guest looking at, but that's okay. It's a different conversation for a different time. But the facts are, ladies and gentlemen, our guest means so much to the community. And in many ways, I said it when he was here the first time, this is his home. I know that he has done many podcasts over the past several years. I know people interview him about the stepdads. I know people talk to him about GTS, but truly, this is the platform that he helped build. This is the platform that connected people. Every single day on Sportzwire Radio, there's a new promotion propping up, and they're now all of a sudden going to say, hey, I want to go wrestle this person. We've now got things called Summer Bash. We've got things called the Riot in the Ring, the All Wrestling Matters Hardcore Tournament. We've got Backyard Havoc now in November. We've got the Backyard Brawl coming. I mean, the list continues. There's Best in the Yard already next year. There's another sequel to the Riot in the Ring, Summer Bash. It's endless. The opportunities of connection. I've even heard through the grapevine there's stuff coming out in late, who knows, toward the end of the year involving wrestlers from things I'm not even able to talk about. And you'll find that out. You'll certainly see what I'm talking about. But the facts are is that, ladies and gentlemen, our guest, he means so much to the community. He may have left, but he'll never leave. He'll never leave because of what he did every single week, giving us the news. Now, he certainly did it in his own twist. I certainly have my way of doing things, but there's only one host of the Global Backyard Wrestling Network and the Global Backyard Wrestling News, and there will only be one Rad Hazard. 1, Rad Dad Radley Belmont. Oh, by the way, what he does in the ring, pretty damn good. I mean, what he does in the ring, whether it's been in the yard, whether it's been on a mat, whether it's been on the floor, maybe a trampoline or two, whether it's whatever he's been on, there's no question that he is a man in the ring that he certainly has been in there with the very best. And he deserves all of that success in the world. There is no question, ladies and gentlemen, that Rad Dad Radley Belmont is somebody that when we think about all the different things in the backyard wrestling circuit, he might have said once upon a time that the backyard wrestling circuit could die. Certainly people that he was involved with kind of joked about the fact that they moved on and they did different things with their lives. But I'll tell you this much, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people out there, from what I've seen, because of the backyard wrestling circuit, they may not be here, figuratively and literally. You know, before I introduce formally our 88th member into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, I do want to go back to that lyric, that Phil Collins lyric about we've got our problems, and I'm always by your side. Because the truth is that from what I've seen from backyard wrestlers, there's a lot that's been said about backyard wrestlers. A lot of them have been maligned on this platform. A lot of them have been unfairly maligned. Actually, pretty much everywhere you go, up and down. But I can tell you, from what I've even seen recently from Global Backyard Wrestling Network members, such as Remy Ravage or Sean Jovi, and they talked about their firsthand accounts, I sure as hell am glad that backyard wrestling exists, because I've heard on this platform people talk about real problems, depression, mental health, suicide attempts. I've heard people talk about struggling with their identity, struggling with who they were and what they were. And if it wasn't for backyard wrestling, they wouldn't be anywhere on this earth. I hear it each and every day, and they talk about what it means to be out there, how proud they are. And as a matter of fact, Rad Hazard made people feel proud. Whether he did it in his own tongue-in-cheek, because after all, he's got a lot more humor than I am, because I'm trying a career in stand-up comedy, but I'll never make it. But the facts are is that Rad Dad's been on the biggest stage. He's been in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage. But the facts are is that backyard wrestling will never die. Backyard wrestling will always be that all wrestling matters movement. That to this day, whether people want to admit it or not, backyard wrestling is the reason why so many people go out there and compete in places like WWE. How about names like Seth Rollins? How about names like the Hardy Boys? How about those boys in AEW, the Young Bucks? How about even guys like The Undertaker once upon a time? He said, yeah, I was a backyard wrestler. How about guys like Shannon Moore once upon a time? How about, oh, by the way, Mick Foley? We can keep going. The facts are is that, sure, there can be tongue-in-cheek videos about what the GBYWN was. People can say here on Sportswire Radio, we're the new thing about it, but we're not. There is no, ever be, no GBYWN. There was only one GBYWN, but here's what unites us here before I induct our newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And I guarantee you, he's probably sitting through the longest speech of his life right now. He's like, come on already. It took me 2 minutes to get engaged to my beautiful soon-to-be wife. Get the show on the road. But I want to say this for the people that are here, is that backyard wrestling, as long as I've got a pulse, and I can assure you, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, because unlike those guys, with all due respect, a decade ago, my bank account's pretty damn big, and I've got the time to be able to go out there. And I'll tell you what, you go tell me a backyard wrestler or two that needed help with something. They needed help with an issue. They needed help going to a trip. They needed something, whatever it was. There was one man who was behind them. There was one man who was there on their side. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the reason that I'm going to continue to fight like hell for backyard wrestling is because of this individual right here and those that laid the foundations, quote unquote, for us here to be where we are today without even knowing it. Rad Hazard, you certainly gave us the opportunity. You didn't know it. You wouldn't know it. But nobody would know it. But the facts are, it's all sitting right in front of us. There was a quote famously from Hillbilly Tilly, who was also in his own right a backyarder many moons ago. And he remembers the Global Backyard Wrestling Network, and he remembers what that news was all about. And his lines, true wrestlers do it for the love of this sport. True wrestlers go out there and put their blood, sweat, and tears out there. This man, ladies and gentlemen, he traveled miles upon miles to connect with people, to show us that open collaborations can work. He went out there and gave the news. Sure, he did it in a tongue-in-cheek way. I could never get away with that here on this platform. But the facts are is that he went out there and told us what was going on in places and said, you know what? If I'm in upstate New York, I have a dream. Maybe I can go to Indiana. If I'm in Indiana, maybe I can go out there and maybe go to Texas, or I can go to Canada even, or the United Kingdom or Australia, because 80-plus companies and countless wrestlers had an opportunity to live a dream. When I was growing up, we didn't have much. I often looked outside the window. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I often wondered many times, would I ever amount to anything? I would see people, I would see them walk by, and sometimes I would wonder, where's going to be my moment? Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? It's not about me. I learned from those experiences. It's about giving others the opportunity to have those moments. This man did that. This is why we're going to give him a moment. We're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about a lot of different things and maybe talk about, as I stated, something else coming up in late September. And I know there's a lot of people waiting for this. And I also want to point this out there. I'm purposely doing this. I am going to make sure that you have the longest speech of all the inductions I have ever done in the entire history of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Why? Because you and Mr. Copper Dragon are the reasons why there is a Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. You know, there's a lot of people that say out there, oh, being in a Hall of Fame, there's 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 members in it. Yeah, you know what? I hope that there's 10,000, 15,000 backyarders and undergrounders and everybody else that goes into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Because you know what? I'm here to recognize the people in the backyard wrestling circuit. And as a matter of fact, you know, baseball has a Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Hockey has a Hall of Fame in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Basketball, Springfield, Massachusetts. Football, Canton, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, for all wrestling matters, Sportswire Radio has a Hall of Fame here. And ladies and gentlemen, I know that I can go on and on and on about our guest. And I'm going to do that tonight. You better believe I'm going to do it because I've been fired up about this one for weeks. There are some people that come on here and yes, I'm doing my community service in some ways. Yes, we're doing all wrestling matters in honor. But this man, ladies and gentlemen, he is about that, all wrestling matters. Because you know what? In many ways, I don't deserve to have a microphone standing next to this man. I don't deserve to, because you know what? Because what he's done for us, in many ways, Jesus Christ gave his life. He gave his life. And I'm a reverend. I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to invoke being a reverend here. He gave his life for those to have an opportunity before us. This man, ladies and gentlemen, put his body on the line for us in the backyard. Yes, I know you've wrestled Grim. Yes, I know you've done a lot in GTS, and I'm putting you in the Hall of Fame in part because of that. Yes, you've wrestled the Rock and Roll Express. Yes, you've done some really important things. But the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, I know you've moved on from being Rat Hazard. I know you might have had fun in being it for a day or two on the Golden Triangle kind of hype video here for September 28th and 29th. Rest assured, I'll get to that. But the facts are, ladies and gentlemen, you're in the Hall of Fame, Rad Dad Radley Belmont, for your legacy in the backyard wrestling circuit. Because this is what bonds all the people I see in my chat right now. There is no question that people in the backyard have maybe, if you want to say it, have had more success than you. But you know what? I'm going to say that you've had the most success. You know why? Because people identify with you. To me, the way I see it in life, you're not judged by how much money you've made. You're not judged by how many friends you have or how many championships. You know, all too often I hear in wrestling, who's won, who's lost. And I got to make sure I go over this person. I can't wrestle on a trampoline. I can't wrestle here. I can't wrestle there. But you know what? It's all hogwash, ladies. I'm going to tell you why it's hogwash. Because it's people like our guest here who's about to go in the Hall of Fame. He gave us those opportunities. He went out there and laid his body on the line. And the facts are is that backyard wrestling will never die. Backyard wrestling will always continue. Will there be different names that go on and carry the legacy? Sure. There's no question about that. But the facts are is that the people in this community a community that you helped build without even knowing with it, they're identifying with you not because of GTS, not because you wrestled Overweight Grim, not because you've been in some funny segments or you wrestled Tarzan Duran. Was he high when you wrestled him? I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him. But the facts are is that you're in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame because of what you did in delivering the community and bringing it together and the global backyard wrestling news and later on into that global backyard wrestling network. As I stated, I can go on and on and on about our guest, but I now officially want to congratulate and introduce the 88th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, our 8th member of the 9th class, the man that used to be known and forever known as Rad Hazard. He's now known as Rad Dad Radley Belmont. But before I officially congratulate you and put you in the Hall of Fame, yes, you officially have the longest speech of any Hall of Famer in Sportswire Radio history. But I'm not done yet because there ain't nobody like me. Because first of all, you're a guy that grew up in our community. You served our community. You fought for us in the streets. And you grew up and you rose up. And if there's anybody that's ever had this microphone and it's ever had a platform like me, Lord knows about growing up on the streets. Lord knows about being a guy that served in our streets, served in our communities. I've done that, and I've proudly done that as somebody from being born in Brooklyn, New York, and I wouldn't change that for the world. I wouldn't change any of that, which is why now I'm going to give you that introduction that everybody else knows and loves, and I can't wait to do it because I know sure as heck you ain't getting that in GTS. You ain't getting that in EBW. You ain't getting that whatever indie show in the middle of who knows where these next 3 weeks you're wrestling in. Gabe Sayers ain't giving you that introduction in TF Crew because he ain't got the voice. He wants to do a podcast. He's here tomorrow instead of rather doing his own podcast. So I'm going to give you that introduction and officially congratulate. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in introducing the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, our 88th member, and our 8th member of the 9th class, the one and only Rad Dad Radley Belmont. And for especially now that we're in prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the only platform where all wrestling matters, it's time to give you that world famous introduction. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Wire. Number one. Sports show. Once upon a time, he was known as Rad Hazard, the GBYWN U.S. champion, the man that was leader of a radical movement. He was forever, though, a leader of the backyard wrestling movement. He was the host of the Global Backyard Wrestling News and Network. Now, though, we simply know him as the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, our 88th member and 8th member of the 9th class. His name is simply put, Radley Congratulations, my friend. You're the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame.
I am beyond honored. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Jeez. I'm sure you saw in the comments a lot of people saying Rad has, because I used to actually announce myself that way. I
actually went back in recently, these last few weeks. I went back
and saw it, right?
Watched a lot of it. Yeah, I did.
I'll do it just for old time's sake. Just for old time's sake. This is for Sean Jovi. Rad Hazard. And there goes my voice. Hold on one second.
Well, you listen, I do this every day, so you're lucky you can just go in the ring. I've done about 165 shows in about 113 days. People have actually said, I've actually had people say that they're praying for me. They say, I'm praying for you. Whatever it is, I'm praying for you. I've watched you, and people are like, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm almost there, and people are like, I'm praying. I've actually got my own neighbors for the first time. I've been watching you. You know what? I don't know what it is, but I'm praying for you.
Now, I have a small glimpse of that because when I used to do my news show, I would do voiceovers for every episode. Some of the episodes would go up to 40, 50 minutes. And that's not all voiceover, but there's a lot of voiceover. And
I'd watched some of them. I went back and watched the history of it.
My voice would be totally shot for like 2 days, and I just go to work and have no voice.
Well, I have to go back and do it the next day. In some case, I do 2 and 3 shows in a day, and because there's guys that they depend on it. They depend on being here. That's what it's like. That's what it means to them. But obviously, there's a lot to talk about. But I think I want to start out formally in saying congratulations. And now, what does it mean to you to be the newest member of the Sportzwire Radio Hall of Fame?
That is so awesome. And I don't care if there's one person or 1,000 people in the Hall of Fame. The fact that somebody like yourself, the people in this community cared enough and, appreciated something that I did enough to have that moment to say, hey, you are in our Hall of Fame. Obviously there's no physical Hall of Fame. It's not about that. It's about showing appreciation. And I that's something you didn't see in my era because we were living in it in the moment. We didn't think all about that kind of stuff. And we even had tried to have a GBYWN Hall of Fame at the time, but it was people from the previous generation.
Yeah, there are some companies that have their own. There are others that sort of do kind of, and they endorse like 1 or 2 people. But I was motivated to do it because I've been doing this for almost 6 years, and I've interviewed so many people, not just in wrestling, and people are like, you should really go back and like honor your career. I'm like, well, I don't want to honor myself, but it was really a motivation. Yeah. People were telling me, like you've been doing this for so long, and you should have a Hall of Fame. And I was like, will it work? And I have 88 members in it now, officially, now that you're at number 88. And they're not just backyard and underground wrestling. I have a guy that played the NCAA basketball Final Four. I have people that were interviewers. I have a coach for the United States men's amputee soccer team in the United States of America. So there's like some really, like I say that all the time, it's not just a Hall of Fame for backyard. Yes, it's like 70% wrestlers, but it's like there are a lot of people in the Hall of Fame that didn't wrestle. And I think that's what separates this Hall of Fame versus like other Hall of Fames out there where maybe the Fed has it, or maybe a small group honors 1 or 2 people throughout the, and again, I'm not knocking them. That's amazing they do that. But I think with here, a wrestler recently named Aaron Blaze said, this is the one platform where everybody kind of is almost like patched up together. I get pros come on here. I get obviously indies, backyarders, undergrounders, the hardcore, the deathmatch, and we all kind of congregate here. And that's why I really felt that this Hall of Fame, it kind of has had traction, believe it or not, because I have that many in the Hall of Fame, and you're now the newest one.
No, thank you. And there's a lot of great value to that. And obviously the fact that people want to be a part of this shows the value. It's not just what you say. Obviously, what you say matters to me, but to other people, it's not just what you say. It's what the community says. And the community loves the Hall of Fame. Everyone wants to see who's next in the Hall of Fame. And there could be, like I said, there could be 1,000 people and they're still going to tune in. That shows great value in being a part of this. So to me, I want to thank you. Obviously, I want to thank you. I want to thank this community for caring that I'm in any type of Hall of Fame at all.
No, you really, honestly,
means a lot to me.
You really do, because Copper's in it. He got in a couple months ago, and I had a very nice speech with Copper. But no, there's no question. We definitely no question about that. But I think that you definitely did deserve. I know you're a busy man. You do so much out there. You're wrestling all over the place. You're GTS, and But I did feel that you deserve to be in this because, in many ways, without even knowing it, you did kind of lay these seeds to put, again, this together and this platform and such. And I think that that's why, every single night I'm on the air and there's somebody out there. There's somebody commenting. Even last night, we had like 14 people watching live on YouTube. And, people are just, they're looking for something. Even though there's days, listen, I don't want to go out and do it, but it's like there's somebody, they're hoping, they want to. So I kind of think in many ways, for everything you did. I know the first time you were here, we touched a lot upon like GTS and the current stuff. And again, I love all that stuff. I think there are people that recognize you from that. But to me, I really feel your magnitude is more about what you did a decade ago. And I think that's why a lot of people, I think, do in this platform, because by and large, there are some pro guys that come on. We do have pro guys. I still have some British guys come on here. We have those underground kind of in betweeners, the tweeners. But I would say by and large, this is 2/3 a backyard wrestling platform. And the backyarders, they identify with you more through that way. That's why I think, to me, your symbolance of being here is really the symbolism of it in the Hall of Fame is because of what you did a decade ago. And I think that's kind of why you're here.
I appreciate that. I mean, I have many labels, obviously: independent wrestler, professional wrestler, backyard wrestler, with TF Crew, at least underground wrestler in a little bit of way. So to me,
I'm just here tomorrow, by the way. He'll be here tomorrow.
And to me, I'm just wrestler. So I encompass all that stuff because, like you said, all wrestling matters. I believe that in 2009 when I started Backyard Wrestling Weekly. I believe it today.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people do identify, because people are always constantly feeling like, they are under siege. And I think that people shouldn't be under siege, because if you're a basketball player, you go and shoot baskets in a playground, you're not playing in the NBA or whatever league. They don't tell you, oh, well, you can't play basketball. I mean, yes, should you go out and do certain things to improve your craft? Of course. But I think that people do feel like a lot of times that they're under siege. And I think that that's why it's so important here. But also, I got to say also, for the really current events, congratulations on being engaged. Forget about this. I mean, engaged. Congratulations there, Rad Dad. Boy, you're going to have a fuller house. No question about that.
Yeah, we're breaking kayfabe a little bit. But yes, the Rad Dad is going to be... I'm doing great right now. Let's just say that. I'm having a great time. Life is good. I'm just starting to get into a bunch of new promotions. I'm living in this new place. I've been here less than a year. Wow. Awesome times.
I noticed Keyport, New Jersey. I actually have a funny Keyport, New Jersey story. Years ago, I had my father worked with somebody, and we helped him move to Keyport, New Jersey. And I remember where he lived was like, I don't know where you live in Keyport, but it was like off near a highway. And I think the running joke was that's where Hoffa was buried.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right off the highway, essentially.
Where he lived, like you went downstairs and it was like his basement, and it was like you looked up and the highway was there. And then he wound up becoming, if I recall correctly, a state trooper. So it was like, yeah, he must have had a thing or two.
Yeah, my tag team partner, essentially, I always say he has a 2-story house because the bottom basement is completely refurbished. There's a sink, it's a whole second part of the house down underground. It's crazy.
Wow, that's definitely wild. But obviously, congratulations though on that. We look forward to seeing.
Thank you so much.
Some of that. Maybe I should pull up on the screen some current. Let's talk about some current places you wrestled before I get into September 20th. I definitely want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
I want to go down memory lane. I want to present to you some certificates, but I do have some current events. First of all, I want to talk about it. Let's go to a couple of things first where you're going to be wrestling. So let's talk about that for the audience. I always like to still, at the very least, work in some current events. I'll put up some social media links. So I see you got a busy weekend coming up here. You're in Hazleton, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And New Egypt, New Jersey for Sanctuary Wrestling and United Wrestling Coalition. So let's talk about that for a second for what's ahead there in those places and your return to the ring here, Mr. Suburban Legend.
So I've been doing a little bit more singles wrestling lately. Papa Bear, he's got his own family stuff going on. So I
doing the sports business. I see it. I see it on X. He follows.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to dispel any rumors. Not that there are any, but the Stepdads are still a tag team. We're teaming up next month. Like we're still a tag team. But I'm reaching out on my own. I've been a singles guy in GTS for almost 2 years now. I can do this for these other promotions as well. So first and foremost, you're at the top of the list, of course.
I appreciate that. I saw that on Facebook last week, and I'm like, well, does he know that I'm going to do what I do, which is the big video, the clip, and
I do. But I feel like it's really important if a wrestler of any kind is on a podcast, they should be advertising it along with their shows. Why wouldn't
funny
they?
Because it's I know on some wrestlers do that, but it's so funny because here they almost like people know me now by doing the video with the long intro and they know the clip. So I think like people actually, I'm actually getting stopped. I'm getting stopped in the streets for a lot of reasons, but I'm even getting stopped in my home community now saying, when are you doing the video? I actually get people now like on my block, when are you doing the video now? The video I put on Instagram, like where I announce my guest coming on. So that's why I think wrestlers, they always say, when are you doing the video? I get it all the time. When are you doing the video? When are you doing the video? So I appreciate you putting it out there that you were going to be on here. But I always feel like in this community, they need to see me do the video with their shirt on and the whole thing. And I come up with the whole spiel. And, that's kind of
as they should.
No, I appreciate sometimes I get like 600 plus views on those clips, and TikTok too. I even get them. So,
and in my opinion, if even one new person, and honestly, I think just looking at the chat, I've seen 2 or 3 people that may have never seen the show before. If they saw it because of this ad, then that's money worth spent. Even though I didn't spend.
No, I appreciate everything because I'm literally almost at 1,000 subscribers. So if you are here for the first time, do hit the sub button. I am literally this close. So, and there's a running joke that if I get to 1,000 subscribers, I will get roasted on the platform and I will get a tattoo. So, I mean, we're almost there. So
I want to be there for that. Not that I have anything to roast. I just want to watch.
Well, you could roast me. I mean, there's a lot of people that would love to, but so these places, September 6th to 7th, it's kind of in a way maybe the start of fall, more or less. And how excited are you to get back out there and wrestle in these places?
So, like I said, I've been wrestling weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week for GTS. So the fact that I'm getting in front of these live event audiences again is very exciting. I really, outside of Stepdad's matches this year, very few live events, and I'm ready to change that. I feel better than I have in a long time. I'm ready to get out there. I have some people to travel with, ready to go. So, for example, Sanctuary Wrestling, if you're not familiar with them, they wrestle inside a legitimate huge church with a full lighting rig, music. It's just guys, just type in Sanctuary Wrestling and you'll see pictures that you'll be like, is this the church?
I actually think that reminds me, there was a company that used to come on this platform in the UK that had literally the same type of setup, more or less. So I can visually, conceptually, Mr. Rad Dad kind of picture that because I've done that type of coverage before. So
it's $1 million stage, in my opinion. It's one of the most beautiful venues I've seen. In
the church has money in that case. Is my aunt was years ago was a lecturer. She was she would do the in Sunday church. She would do the whole sermon thing. So that meant the church had money. That means when they were doing collections, it was pretty good then. Just don't tell them I said that though. But I can tell you.
Of course, just for clarification, if the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission is watching, Sanctuary Wrestling is not a wrestling show. They are a stunt studio.
Thank you very much. I have heard things about the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission, so we'll leave that at that. Thank you.
So any mention of wrestling is mine and mine alone, and not Sanctuary.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal.
But after that, we have the United Wrestling Coalition. I'm a former tag team champion there. The UWC is very cool because they've been around, I believe, 26 or 27 years.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Incredible age. I love this fun fact. So the UWC, United Wrestling Coalition, has obviously their own championships, but they may be the only independent promotion alive today that has not only held an ECW World Heavyweight title match where Justin Credible defended the title, but also a WWF Light Heavyweight title match when Gilbert was the champion.
Oh, that's right, because when Gilbert was the Light Heavyweight champion, he was actually still defending that title, if I'm not mistaken, in the independent circuit, because when he defeated Christian for it, if I recall correctly, he was still kind of doing the independent scene because he's from that Jersey, Delaware, Maryland area. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. And Justin Credible probably defended that title toward the end of ECW, and he was probably also doing the, or ECW either had a show there, or he was doing independence, maybe some combination.
He wrestled a match against Tommy Dreamer in UWC for the title. Very cool that history. I wish more independent promotions were still around from that era, just to have that connective tissue from 90s.
I think there's one. I don't know how long they've been, but we just had. Do you know it's PXW? I think in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. They've been around a while. I don't know if they've been around that long, but we just had on 2 guys there, and they've been. I think they're over a decade. I would maybe I could ask those guys about that. Max Strong and Andrew Lovelace when they here in 2 weeks in your chair. But yeah, it's a good point. There isn't so many independent wrestling shows that have been around as long as that. But let me ask you this question. I think it's interesting. I know people eventually want to say hello to you. We'll get to that, but In terms of wrestling every week, I know I've spoken to you before. I know we speak here and there, privately, but what's that like making that transition to wrestling in front of, you know, an audience, whatever the size it might be, than when you're doing a YouTube product? And what's that like in terms of, your wrestling skills? How has that been able to enhance your wrestling skills going in front of a live audience first when you do something like a YouTube product?
I think the main thing that I had to learn in reverse, because I had started GTS, obviously, I started live events. To be honest, I started professional training before I was even in the yard. So, like, I even had the little bit of sense of understanding of pro training before I even doing any backyard wrestling. Like backyard, not like just with my friends, but like actually going places doing backyard wrestling shows. And Bryce, I will say this: when I was a teenager, I did wrestle on a trampoline with my friends and neighbors. So
that's been a big debate the last couple of weeks. There's been certain guys that say, "Oh, I'm not, sir. I'm not going to ask you about that."
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Maybe not. But either way, the main difference, like between say a GTS and a live show, is to know your corners of the ring, know your sides. As an independent wrestler live show, there's 4 sides of the ring, maybe 3, but usually it's 4 sides as wrestling fans on all sides. I have to interact essentially with every fan in the room doing whatever move I did. If I'm giving someone an arm drag, I have to arm drag them enough to everyone in the room sees it, and I turn to show my reaction to everyone in the room while my opponent's showing his reaction to everyone in the room. With GTS or there's other ones, other YouTube wrestling shows, we call it the audience of one. You have one fan, and that's the camera. So absolutely everything you do goes to that one fan. If I'm doing an arm drag, my reaction, whether I have to turn my body or whatever the case may be to make it work, is going to be pointing at the direction of the camera the exact same way the guy's selling towards the camera. When I'm doing a promo, towards the camera. A lot of YouTube wrestling encourages mid-ring conversation, as in like you're almost doing a promo while you're taking a beating or you're giving the beating or whatever.
There's a conversation, but
yeah, which on a live event, sure, a guy's gonna say like "gotcha now," or a bad guy is gonna walk around and talk smack.
But that live audience may not understand that, because that live audience might just be a casual wrestling fan, whereas the YouTube person that's viewing it, they are invested in your character, right?
Knowing your audience is so important, and that's for everyone in any part of wrestling. You have to know your audience because every audience is different. I've gone to shows where I had this super indie-rific X Division crazy match. I'm taking Canadian Destroyers, and people are going ballistic. I do the exact same match with the exact same tag team in the middle of nowhere in Western Massachusetts, and it's a ghost town until there's a phantom tag behind my back and the crowd goes crazy. And they just want old school Southern style. And you have to know that.
But how do you deal with that when you're in these places, and who knows where there's 10, 15 people, and when you're on GTS and you get thousands of people watching, you're in the number 7 wrestling promotion. How do you deal with that? Because that still has to be mentally a major adjustment. I don't want to say it's a deflator, because it's really not, because you're actually wrestling in front of people, but it's still psychologically, people would go and say, well, I'm wrestling in GTS, and whatever I'm doing, I have 40,000 people that may watch me, but then I'm going to an indie show that only those people may watch it. So how do you mentally make that adjustment?
So for me, it's like when you're in the moment at a GTS show, any GTS wrestler will tell you this. I wrestled Grim 31 minutes last month. We weren't thinking about like you don't imagine 31,000 fans watching you. You just imagine the one. It's way less stress that way. way less worry. But when you're at the live show and there's it's a challenge. I think Steve Austin, I think it was Steve Austin, said something like, it's a more talented part. Like, who's talented when they can make 100 people cheer for you, because anybody can make 10,000 people cheer for you. Having that intimate closeness with the fan, where I've wrestled recently in front of 15 people. I've wrestled in front of 300 people. I think it was exactly 316 people. Oh, heck yeah.
Well, 300's a bit. Well, 300's like a lot. People would say, "Oh, it's not." Trust me, my mother actually performs, and she sings, and 300 people is a lot of people. Actually, it's the equivalent of almost like if you're a musician, it's kind of like playing almost a high quality club. Almost 300 people is really proud.
You actually brought up a great thing I was going to bring up earlier. I compare wrestling to comedians. So think about like your favorite comedy act on like an HBO special. They're in front of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people in an amphitheater. And then that same guy or girl later on is at the local comedy club in front of 50 people trying out new stuff. Is one more important than the other? I would say no.
Fair point. I think that's a very fair point.
Because that comedian has to try the new stuff. And not every show is going to have that for like the huge events, if you want to think of it that way. The same thing goes for like the level of comedians to wrestling. There's no middle ground. It's either you're wrestling in front of small crowds or you're practically on TV in some form. There's no middle ground anymore. There's no territory system where it's like, yeah, we're in front of like 1,000 people every month, but we're not on TV.
Yeah, wrestling doesn't. You don't have that. No, wrestling is no middle ground. It is no.
Right.
I don't even think MLW is the middle ground because you're 300 people. So it's either like you're in thousands like WWE, to an extent AEW, maybe Impact, and then it's everybody else. So yeah, that's it's an adjustment. It's but you're gonna make those adjustments, and you got a whole bunch of other dates. We'll talk about the one later on in Pittsburgh. But I see you're in Lakewood, New Jersey. I actually know Lakewood very well. You're there, and you're in New Egypt, New Jersey, and you're in EBW, which I know very well. That EBW, and that's how do you like wrestling in EBW? I think when I first spoke to you, you were just going into EBW, and how have you liked your experience in EBW? There's two EBWs. There's one that sort of wrestles live, and there's the other one, and so I know the whole deal. Though most of the guys are kind of similar there in terms of where they're wrestling, but what's your experiences like in EBW so far?
I try to do my research as much as possible when I come to new promotions. Most promoters know that when I start a new promotion, I try as much as possible to watch the backlog of those companies. Yep. And
they have a long history, by the way, a very long history.
Oh, yeah. And they'll even tell me like, oh, you went back and watched like 20 hours of wrestling? I'm like, yeah, I had.
And knowing the owner, he probably asked you like, well, what did you think of my match? And he asked, knowing him, I know him a little bit. So I've had history with him. So yeah, I could see that.
I wrestled a very shady masked man who may or may not have been the promoter. We're not sure.
Yeah, we're not going to go there because it could be 8 different aliases he has. Yes,
right.
You wrestled that individual somewhere else on the show, so we'll leave.
But yeah, and I understand there's the 2 EBWs, the Pro and the Forever and stuff like that. The different rosters slightly, but I always see companies like that, and I think there's so much potential, and that's what I think about as the potential. Like they're in a great venue. They have down there in Lakewood, and so they have a lot of opportunity to grow and to do some big stuff. And I don't even know if they want to grow, but I know the wrestlers want to grow. And they're going to get into other things. Hashtag Ego being in GTS, for example.
Yes, I know Ego very well. I know Austin James for quite a while. He's been on here about 3 or 4 times. I know Austin very well.
There you go. Jack Martins just showed up there, and I'm a big fan of Jack Martins. He's great. He's going all over the New Jersey scene. Guys like that. So
Infamous Montana, right? You met Infamous Montana.
Yep. Good Absolutely. Guy. And so I was even in the breakout championship battle royal that the first champion. Unfortunately, I didn't win it, but I gave a good effort. I will say, unfortunately, I will not be making that show because my schedule was changed on October 12th. I'm now in Connecticut for.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to be in Connecticut that day as the stepdads with the tag team, as Legacy is Timeless Wrestling. Have you heard of Lit? Have you heard of Lit before?
Yeah, I actually, when you said Connecticut Legacy is Timeless, I know I've heard that promotion somewhere. Yes, because I actually have family in Connecticut, so I'm very familiar with Connecticut. So yes,
I highly recommend anybody who wants to see the future of pro wrestling, and I'm not saying that as hyperbole or a compliment. I'm saying as a fact, the future of professional wrestling is roster members of Lit and Test of Strength Wrestling, the sister promotion. Wow. They have incredible talent that are already top people at Wrestling Open. Already top. One of their top guys is named Ichiban. He's already signed with MLW. He still wrestles for Lit because of Lit elevating him to that level and Test of Strength elevating him to that level. And so these people, if you want to see who's going to be on Raw in 6 years, this is the show you watch. So I would highly recommend checking out Legacy is Timeless. You're
very excited about going to Connecticut. You're very
and I've been there many times. I wrestled for Test of Strength for maybe 2.5 years, something like that. Legacy is Timeless, new promotion that started late last year. I've had two stepladder matches in their company already. The stepladder match being our top match, the match we made up, and you can't have a stepladder match without the stepdads. That's the rule.
Obviously.
So, and we'll be making a return there very soon. I can't announce our opponents, but we will be in tag team action.
Yes, please don't announce who you're wrestling, because we had an incident on this platform where a wrestler announced what they were doing, and we really want to move on from that. But if you want to check out Rad Dad on YouTube, by the way, you got a lot of stuff here, a lot of history with Rad Dad here. You got different stuff, a lot of GTS stuff, some independent stuff there. So you want to check out, there are some friends on the platform that have been here, that are on there, so definitely check that out. Hit the sub button for Rad. I'll also pull up some other links, but definitely go out there and please hit the sub button. Let's support those that support us.
I would highly recommend this to any pro backyard underground, anybody who cares about their footage and their legacy, and that's a huge thing to me. Is legacy.
Allmark said when he was here a few times. Dean is a friend of mine, and Dean has his YouTube channel almost identically built like yours, where it's got almost his entire catalog. So it's got stuff. I mean, he's been around a little bit longer than you, respectfully, but his catalog it's vast, and he just puts it out there and say, hey, listen, you want to watch me wrestle? Here you go. So, I mean, I think it's almost the same.
And we can get into this a little later, but you talked to Remy Ravage yesterday about.
Yes, I did talk to Remy.
How her footage from
years ago was
Collision Championship Wrestling was deleted. I think in 2011. That event, along with other stuff, is the reason I became practically a video hoarder. I have like 95 to 97% of everything I've ever been recorded in wrestling, including GTS footage that is limited time only. So if you see the GTS footage, there's a very good chance that it will go unlisted.
Well, that's why you got to get those watch hours. You got to go hit that sub button for Rad, so we can get those watch hours up. So you can obviously help him collect some money off that, because he's put a lot of time into those videos there. Absolutely. I mean, it's a vast collection of different things, and we want to make sure we support those who support us. I know I have to give you some certificates, but I got so many people that want to say hello to you, and if I don't do that, I'm here every night. You're not. They will hang me, so I better make sure we say hello to some people here. Sean Jovi's been waiting for this. I mean, he was telling me, actually, Sean Jovi gave up a Magic game. I'm going to say it on the air, he gave up a game of Magic today because he heard you were coming. You know what? I was going to play Magic, but now I got to go and watch Sportswire because Rad Dad's here. So he's like, he's got to drop all his stuff. So he gave up this Magic game for you. I want to put that out there. So
Sean, thank you for joining our gathering.
And he said, this is a rare thing for Sean Jovi. He's the first. He's never the first comment. So this is a big deal. It's a big deal to have you here, and we're very happy about that. Yes, Zilla's our resident chatter, and she says hello. Yes, hello. Yes, thank you for that. I must be messing with the thermostat again. What was what was that for? Hillbilly Tilly, who I quoted in my speech, is in the house. He is from the great state of Alabama. Have you wrestled in Alabama before?
I have not wrestled in Alabama.
Really?
No, it's one of the few that there's a lot of wrestling there, and I've always wanted to wrestle more in southern states. Obviously, I love southern wrestling. I love southern tag wrestling.
You've wrestled, so that's obviously the connection. You got Flair's type.
I love it.
Well, we definitely want to make that happen. But Craven Rage, who says hello to a true legend, absolutely, and two of the biggest new stars in history. I'm no star, but Rad Dad is all the star. But definitely thank you for that. Big Man Cam says, hey, Rad Dad, how goes it? He's like 6'17" with a size 39 shoe. So if Papa Bear ever decides to hang it up, he could be your tag team partner. He'd actually
sounds good.
Yes, and congrats on the engagement. We all wish you very, very much happiest and all the good stuff there.
Love you, Sean.
Want to say hello to Jackson Law. It's Captain Law in there, but he says, "Rad Dad, baby, how you doing, Mister Jackson Law?" Jackson was in my stream on Monday, and good to see him here. My friend from the great state of Ohio, he is Mr. Hamstar himself from All Legendary Wrestling, the Rad Dad. He's got some more comments with you. Yes, congrats to Rad Dad on the engagement. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Rad Dad. We say hello to him, and I say hello to my champion in the PWF, Justin Parsley, who kind of looks a little bit like you, but he looks more like David Spade. He's more like David Spade's lost younger brother, but he says dad life, Rad Dad. So Mr. Parsley, who's been a traveler as well, I'm sure you'll see him. Who knows? Nicholas Crenton says, congratulations, Rad Dad. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sean Jovi apparently is making a pitch to you. There are more pitches coming where this is. If Rad were to come to Iowa, to wrestle, I'd be willing to pitch for a plane ticket. Just saying. So he's willing to pay for a plane ticket.
He knows me. I'll go anywhere, anytime. I just need a ride.
So Sean Jovi, there you go. There's the bat signal. Here's the next one.
Where's the trampoline going to be? That's what I need to know.
I'll ask Sean on that because Sean's saying he wants to come back in the trampoline.
We need a trampoline tournament.
And you're even getting offers in Indiana now. Indiana wants you. Rad Dad to XCW. So there you go.
I had some of my most memorable moments in Indiana.
Yes, ICW, obviously. It's a lot of history there, for sure. Amen. Yes, I'm not running for any office. I'm running away from office. Thank you very much, though. Thank you for that. The elections, yeah, very smart. And I actually worked in politics, so the last thing I want to do is go work in the government. But that's a different conversation for a different time. Yes, thank you, Zilla, for that. Rad Dad is the reason I found wrestling.
I'd love to know how and why. That's amazing.
He'll tell us. I got a lot of people here that want to talk. Sean Jovi liked my speech. It was, I don't know if you should have said it here, but it was important to have the speech we wanted. There's a lot of people,
heart, my friend.
A lot of people did. I said it to you the first time. I know you've done a lot of podcasts. I know they come, but I really feel this is the one that is more where you belong in terms of I know you get offers. We'll never tell anybody not to do a podcast, but this is the one truly that I feel like that this is your home in many ways. I feel like that's the case. When Jimmy Controversy's here, even though it's Jimmy Controversy, kind of the same thing, but I think with you, it's more so, but Jimmy's Jimmy. I mean, I love Jimmy, but Jimmy's Jimmy. You can get 45 minutes out of him. It's like, okay, I got enough. I'm good to go, Jimmy. Good to go. We'll see you next time.
Shut up.
Yeah, 45 minutes, and that's enough. But thank you. No, but he would say the same thing himself. It's actually not anything. Now Gabe tomorrow will probably be the same type of show, but I won't give him that thunderous introduction. No, he won't get that, but he'll get. Actually, Gabe owes me an introduction because I subscribe to the Patreon page of TF Cruz. He owes me something, but we'll leave that at that. The speech is one of the top 10 of speeches. Thank you for it. You wanted to say it was a great speech, which is, yes, it was my longest speech. How you doing there, Walter Johnson? Rad Dad from DTS. How you doing, Walter? Definitely hit the sub button for me. I'm at Sportswire Radio 6579. Almost at 30 subscribers right now live watching, and hit them all the sub button and get to 900 subs. How you doing? Yep, definitely know who you are. I say hi.
There we go. You gotta get him on.
I know Sean's been killing me on it, but I will message him when we're off the air. You know what it is? You were lucky. You just did the news. He did 20 minutes. You were off of the stream. I do this every single night. I have people that message me on Instagram. I gotta be on. Sometimes my head wants to explode. But I will get him on before the 28th. Rest assured, we'll make that happen before the 28th.
It'll be worth the wait. I guarantee.
Oh, I know. Oh, trust me. I have actually. In 2 weeks, it's a whole week of big guests, but I can't say who, but they'll be big ones. Want to say hello to my buddy Steven Stone from Resurrection Wrestling. He just changed his name. Is Sharon Stone his mother? Hopefully, maybe it's a good thing if it would be. I wouldn't mind, but that's okay. Fatal Instinct leg reaction, but we'll move that for a different show, different time.
Do people still know that reference?
Sean Jovi probably does.
Yes.
Absolute legend. Want to say hello to my buddy Judas from the great state of Ohio and Marion, Ohio. They're important for a reason. I'll get to that in a second. Telegram, it's time for him to finally have Big Man Cam out. Well, you obviously can't do anything about that, but maybe he'll just knock on Grimm's door.
Just show up. What's he going to do?
He's really big, and also he took a picture with Hulk Hogan a couple weeks ago, and he was bigger than Hulk Hogan. Now, Hulk Hogan said a lot of things that I probably wouldn't recommend people say recently on social media. Yeah. But I will say, at the very least, when he took his photo with Big Man Cam, he made Hulk Hogan look basically, like Chris Benoit used to size-wise. Vanilla midgets will move forward. stand-up comedy there. Want to say one of my buddies who's actually is a wrestler in the Pennsylvania independent scene. He is a trained professional wrestler. His name is D Savage. And he says he will be in Hazleton. That's where he lives. He lives in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Yes.
Perfect.
He's a very big man. He's got a lot of tattoos. He wears a man bun, and he's an interesting individual. I would recommend meeting him. I'll connect him to you. And his tag team partner, where he wrestles in the independents, looks like he's bigger than half the WWE roster. But really, he really looks like half bigger than the WWE roster. And every time I see him, I'm like, "Hello, sir. How are you? How are you?" I'm always like, "Yes, sir." Always very nice. Humbly like his post on Instagram. Give him a cheer because I don't want that guy knocking on my door. I mean, if that guy knocked on Grimm's door, I think Grimm will give him the keys to the war chest that he has from GTS. Let's move on now. Sanctuary's lit. Best place to bump. He knows about it. There you go.
I love the ring. I love the ring there. Yeah, I agree.
He wrestles, and I want to give him a plug. He wrestles in 814 Wrestling, by the way.
Nice.
Okay. Want to say hello to Mr. Jake Dvorak. Jake was actually on the TF Crew show. You have to know Jake. You know Jake.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Good old Jake.
Oh yeah.
Jakey boy. Good old Jake. Jake's a good friend. He wanted to wrestle me, and then he said, "Just kidding." Afterwards, which I was like, "Okay, you want to take over Sportswire instead?" And then we moved on. Big Man Cam versus Rad Dad. Well, I don't know what to tell you on that. We'll see. Who knows? He's too big.
I mean, I might not even realize he's there. I might just assume there's a wall next to the ring, and I didn't know it was him.
Like one of those when you
leave.
You might need like the newspaper and the bagpipe, and just hopefully. Well, he doesn't like pizza, so just bribe him with pizza, and he'll have to go get Pepto-Bismol. So that's
perfect. Quick roll up, it's over.
That's his Achilles heel. That's his kryptonite is pizza. So he doesn't like pizza, so that's the problem.
All right.
Big Man Cam versus doing the Glucko. I won't even bring that up. It's a competitor who said Remy Ravage basically said that this person to F, and I don't want to get you involved in that, sir.
All right,
I'm going to make sure of that. I do want to say hello to Mr. DVG. I know you love DVG, by the way. DVG is very upset at me because I have to get him back on the Sportswire, and I completely blanked out.
DVG and I have I feel like the last EBW show we talked for like 2 or 3 hours or something ridiculous like that.
And he's doing wrestling too. Also, I see him like he's always with him and the Stompers. Him and the Stompers, they're like peas in a pod almost. Him and the Stompers.
Awesome.
Have you met the Stompers yet? By the way, have you met them?
I don't believe I have. No.
Okay. You should meet them. By the way, I really recommend that.
I will.
And now he says he's kidding. There he is, Mr. Austin James. Austin's always a favorite of mine, and Austin you see all the time now. He's a work buddy of yours.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the
GTS already.
Yes, I was good to see him. I do want to say hello to Mr. Jack Delta, of course, Mr. Delta, a man that was at the tail end of the GBYWN days, stopping in to say hi, good evening, gentlemen. It's always nice to see a big drawer on here. Yes, you are the drawer. I am not the drawer. It's always cool to see the chat popping up because the people, they want to chat with you, not with me. So
this is fun.
Yes, well, that's why people like coming here. Yes, we know Wisconsin. He said it already twice. Now he's saying funds. Okay, funds.
Okay.
Your language right now. I don't get in the middle of that, but I heard money. So that means wrestlers. Do they work for money or is it hot dogs and a handshake? I know nothing about wrestling. Do you guys work for hot dogs and a handshake or is it for money?
I'm not a hot dog guy personally. I'm just saying.
Actually, believe it or not, I haven't had a hot dog since I want to say. I don't know. Maybe my father's been dead. We don't have hot dogs anymore. Well,
I mean, weird side story, but I'm not really a boiling hot dog guy. Like maybe
I used to only have hot dogs.
Grilled,
hot dogs.
maybe?
Well, as a kid, hot dogs were something I detested because growing up, we didn't have a backyard. Now, you guys were all backyard wrestlers. I didn't grow up with a backyard, so There was no hot dog boiling. Now, years later, when I moved, yes. We would have a barbecue. We would grill hot dogs. But other than that, I haven't had hot dogs age. But let's move on. I don't want to talk about hot dogs. I want to talk about the people that want to say something to you, not me. I love when pro indie guys are here. Yes, because D Savage is an indie. He was here Saturday, by the way. See, I do bring everybody on. We were talking earlier on Instagram, and I think he didn't realize. Well, I think I did tell him. I think I told him you were coming here, so he was coming in. That's why he was excited about that. Obligatory insert. I want a match with Rad Dad here. Plug him in. So Jack Delta is also next on the agenda because Jack Delta is obviously a legend in his own right. Have you ever wrestled with James Fury on a show? That's one of his very good friends. Have you been on a bill with James Fury?
I don't believe so. No, there's so many. Wrestling's such a small world, but also at the same time, there's so many people. And I have so many. I still need to wrestle. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, Jack,
I want to wrestle everybody. That's not just like, oh, he's being nice. He's saying
I'm
it.
not
No,
in
I
the
really want
wrestling
to wrestle
business,
everybody. I'm
so
ready.
I can say, don't wrestle me. I can pay you though to show up to a show.
I can make you look real good. I'm
No,
telling you.
I'm
I mean,
good.
no
I'm good. You
problems.
know
No
what? I
bumps.
got
No
enough
problem.
problems doing this show. I've done 160 plus shows in 113 days. Leave me alone. But
Listen, I wrestled a 73-year-old man who couldn't get off his feet, and we went 12 minutes.
that wasn't Mike Sanders we're talking about, who's been
No,
wrestling all
he
over.
finished. He
Mike
beat me
Jackson,
with a
I'm sorry,
choke
Mike
slam.
Jackson.
So
Well, you know what? Jack Delta's on the list, and he's a big, tall guy, and he's from Michigan. So, yeah, you never know. That would be an interesting match. Let's see. Let's get to some more comments here. I guess, once again, I can get Grim to finally pop on and address in the DMs. I'll take a week off of work and just show up every day that week if that's what it takes. He lives in Ohio, by the way, so I don't know what the distance is from GTS, but I'll just,
from Southern Jersey, yeah, that's a little ways, but
yeah.
if you show up, he'll book you. I'm pretty confident in that.
You know what? I will leave that to those individuals. I really don't know Graham, and I think Big Man Cam, I haven't seen him on my platform in a while, so I don't know what's up with him. So I'll leave those two individuals to have a chat. I want to say a little, speaking of Alabama, see, Alabama's in the house from the Alliance Wrestling League, and they've had Skrilla on their shows, who, by the way, is a disciple of Copper Dragon, so maybe they want to book you too. Who knows? In the Spartan Arena, they're over in beautiful Gadsden, Alabama, and the Gadsden Mall over there. So Alabama's a great place. A lot of wrestling history. Bobby Eaton, of course.
Skrilla, guy of my generation.
Skrilla, who actually was supposed to be on Sportswire, then realized he had fitness class. But it's okay.
That's just Skrilla thing to do, though. You know
well, actually, but when he said it, I was like okay with it because I was basically like Copper basically set it up, and I told Copper, like, okay, all right, we'll reschedule. It's all good. It's all good. I'll get to meet Rad Dad at the TF crew if Gabe ever holds up his end of the bargain because he knows Gabe because Gabe has wrestled in him and Jake's promotion NEW because Gabe and him have something over like Chinese egg noodles or something like that. So they have a little bit of a thing, yeah. He keeps reminding me about that. So I don't know.
Weirder things.
It's the wrestling world, but yes, Gabe obviously, him have some things, but we'll move on from that. I got a lot more comments ahead.
Good.
Okay, look, I don't love pizza that much. Okay, thank you for letting me know. And I have a good one from Craven Rage. What is your favorite match that you've ever had?
Oh, my favorite match ever. Jeez.
Yeah, favorite match.
I'll throw you a pro match and I'll throw you a yard match for people to look up.
Good deal.
So my favorite pro match personally that I've had is against the Ugly Ducklings.
Oh, yes, you talked about that here. Yes.
So just to quickly recap, we were supposed to go, I think it was 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 minutes. The beginning of the match was completely on the fly, turned into an impromptu dance-off that went about 8 minutes. And then one of the guys on the Ugly Ducklings team looked at the promoter and just screamed, "We're going overtime!" And the promoter gave one of these. And we ended up going.
In New York. Was it in New York, if I'm not mistaken?
That was in Utica for Johnny Patches for the New York Championship Wrestling.
Look what you got.
I absolutely love this match. This is back when I hadn't lost all the weight yet, but I was still very athletic. I could still do all
we talked about this when you were here, but I put it up on the screen for the audience.
And I absolutely love this match because it goes, I believe, like 25 to 30 minutes. Yeah, 33 minutes with intros. Thank you for that like, by the way. And
I wanted my burner YouTube channel because I own 3 of them now. So when you first week, I only owned 1. Now I own 2 others. So I really do have money. So maybe I could book you somewhere. Maybe I can book you in my house to do an interview. You're in Keyport. You actually don't live that far from me. If you're in Keyport, I'm in Staten Island. So I'm probably about 45 minutes from your house, probably.
I think we talked about this because I work in Staten Island at the moment. So there you go. But so this match.
That off the air, really. Really talk about that off the air. Let's not tell people where you work on the air because they really will find you.
But, they'll never find me. Don't worry. Even the people that come to our jobs have no idea where I live or where I work.
Good deal. Let's move on. Let's talk about the match for a few.
But so like this match, it's got a huge mat comedy as you can see right now. There's technical wrestling which you saw for a split second. There's more of that later, and then it just gets crazy with like not over the top but very main event level. Crazy wrestling that we're just going back and forth, I like to call dropping bombs, hitting huge moves, and we go back and forth with it. I absolutely adore this match. This match got us hired into Test of Strength Wrestling because a man named Bobby Ocean was just watching and went, "I love these guys. We got to get them in the Test of Strength," and that gave us 2.5 years at Test of Strength under the Killer Kowalski's Legacy Training School.
Okay.
So it was a huge part of our careers to have this match. It was a year in the making. We only had one, and it won match of the year, voted by the fans.
Yep, we talked about that when you were here the
Mhm.
first time, and I thought I'd show it up, and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
love to see
and
it.
I absolutely love having a fan voted award means so much to me because championships are championships, obviously, but for a fan vote award, that's as legit as it gets. The fans really voted that this was the best match of the year. This is their favorite match of the year, and that means a lot to me.
It means a lot that we got a chance to talk about it. Let me get to some more comments because there's a lot of people that still want to say hello. Want to say hello to my buddy Levi McDaniel, who actually another pro who lived in Japan, wrestled in Japan a couple of years,
Nice.
wrestled Cowboy James Storm. He's in Iowa. He's got his own promotion, LMFP Promotions. He was here a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about I've met Hulk Hogan. I spoke with him. I was on a show with him, Microbrewery Championship Wrestling, or whatever it was. And he liked to say hi, and that's what he really looks like because he's really that's how he is. But Levi's recovering from an injury. I hope he's doing well. And I don't know if you're allowed to basically comment on this. I mean, just say it's like $1 or $1 million.
It's not hot dogs, I'll tell you that.
It's something. I mean, obviously, I'm sure I can connect you. You could talk to him. Probably weird about asking people or telling people, but I could say that you could maybe talk about it off the air. But let's just say it's more than
I'll say this to anybody curious, and that's for
There's
today
a lot of
or
people
6
right
months
now
from
that are
now.
very curious.
Yeah, and for today or 6 months from now, if anybody's curious about booking me, the main priority, in my opinion, is transportation and travel. That's the main thing. I'll wrestle anywhere in the country. I just need to find a way to get there. If you can find me a way to get there, that means way more to me than the booking fee I would give you. I'll just put that out. That's my personal thing. It's my personal opinion. Because I want to wrestle.
There's a lot of people here. I got people in Maryland. I got people in Ohio. I got Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Indiana, Iowa. There's a lot of people, Massachusetts, and I'm sure that would love to book you. And I have to obligatorily, because I've been basically forced to do this. Well, not really forced. I want to do it, but I actually been given a photo actually that you're actually invited to something. I actually have it here for the audience. Let me put it up here. We'll take this off the screen and get to some more comments. But boy, you're actually getting invited to things I didn't even know about, but you actually are invited now to a little old thing called the Backyard Havoc coming up here. It's November 9th to 10th in Bremen, Ohio. I'm sure that the promoters there will find a way to get you there and maybe help you there in the booking fee. But we have a bunch of companies there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting yours truly 7. And that you've officially been invited. So you have been invited, and maybe they'll give you an award, honor you. I don't know what, but you've been officially invited to the Backyard Havoc, which is in Bremen, Ohio, which is where coincidentally is the home of my guest right here, Mr. Darktron. And he's got a beautiful home there in Bremen, Ohio. And he's got pretty much, it's like 100 acres, or is it 120 acres or something like that? And
awesome.
he's got a big property, and he's got just all the stuff, all the amenities. And yeah, I'm sure that he's invited you. I didn't invite you. They invited. Actually, I would invite you. I would pay for you to come out, but that's them. I'm not the promoter. But people are now going to say, how much what did he say? But yes, but you can obviously say, Big Man Cam will message you. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. I do want to say a little buddy of mine that I was really excited about here coming up. I was here a few weeks ago. Mr. Silas Walker, also from the Pennsylvania area. And I'm really excited about Silas. We had a couple different things. He's been doing some great things in DBW, which is where Austin James actually wrestles for. What a coincidence. I remember Rad Hazard from BXW was one of Young Me's favorite yarders for sure. And for those that don't know this, Silas has been in the yard for 10 years. He goes back to the heyday of the GBYWN, so he would know very well. I think he was a part of a couple of super shows. It's incredible to see how people progress and develop. And how do you feel you've developed, Noel? That's a great question. How do you feel you've developed over the past 9 or 10 years?
Oh man, it's like a whole nother level. Not that what I did back then wasn't entertaining today to watch. But to give an example, he says he remembers me from BXW. I don't know how many people know that I booked BXW. I was the booker for about 2.5 years.
That's BXW versus the world stuff, right? Is that part of it?
Yeah, Bethlehem Extreme Wrestling. So we had Mike Damage. Matt DeMorris was the world champion. Would travel in all the time. I was there. Johnny Boy, if people remember Johnny Boy. Like all sorts of great guys that weren't exclusive per se to BXW, but BXW was the premier backyard wrestling promotion in the entire area. And like you'd have to go as far as Cooperstown, New York to find another one that was as big or as meaningful to the community as BXW was at the time. Which honestly, that brings me to the other side of that question earlier. You're asking me my favorite backyard wrestling match was my last BXW match. It was against Tim Lee in a pure rules match.
A couple months ago from the UK.
Exactly, yeah. I wrestled. He's legitimately British trained, close friend of Will Ospreay. That's how I got to know Will a little bit. And he flew out from the UK to wrestle me in a pure rules match that went about a half hour for the GBWN World Pure Championship. Yeah, we had a world pure title.
And Jovi was a champion of that once upon a time. Sean Jovi held that title over a decade ago.
He was the second champion, won it in Indiana, I believe.
ICW, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he traveled around with it. Eventually it went to the UK. Will Ospreay wrestled for it and lost, and then I won it. So there you go. I'm very boom.
Did you know though? That's an interesting point. As we're here with Radley, of course, the newest member of the Sportzwire Radio Hall, and I still have a couple of things I want to present to you. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Your voice, figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. I'm going to be here tomorrow at 9:00 Eastern Time with Gabe Sayers. And speaking of Silas Walker, I'm going to be here 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time Tuesday night with Brandon Castelli. He is the DBW Holy Grail Gauntlet winner. So some really big shows ahead. Speaking of the Backyard Havoc, I'm here Sunday night with Holden Holloway. So some really great stuff. Also, for our friend Jake Dvorak, I'm here with Joe Starr in the afternoon, right after the NEW season finale. But we're here right now with Rad Dad. And if you'd like to, please hit the sub button for me. It's Sportswire Radio 65.7. I'm actually almost at 900 subscribers. I'm like a few away. So if you're here for the first time, go hit the sub button. But let me ask you, though, Ospreay is fascinating because everybody knows Ospreay. And I actually have a British listener right now in the chat, my buddy Ethan Dixon, who's training in CCW Cutlery Championship, because I've done a lot in the UK. I haven't done much recently, but I have a long track record actually in UK wrestling coverage than the Backyard. But did you know all those years ago that Ospreay was going to be what he is today? Did you know that?
Honestly, yeah.
You did? Okay. Oh, no. I mean, I think that people would love to hear that. So
if anybody ever wants to look up his stuff, he's not like embarrassed by it or anything. Look up Ace Payne in BYW UK, and you'll find a lot of extremely young Will Ospreay. And he's already wrestling in a ring. He's already doing a lot of the moves you see today. His Stormbreaker is ripped right from an American wrestler named Saint Vengeance. I took the Stormbreaker in 2014, and he debuted the Stormbreaker in like 2019 or 20 or something like that. And he gave credit. He's like, no, I took it from a backyard wrestler that I knew like 10 years ago. And Will was already incredibly talented. I think he was doing it was like PCWA or something like look at this. Like PCW, he was already in that zone back then as Ace Payne. And a lot of the people he was working, Sam Jude, Tim Lee, really good friends of his that they stayed local, but they were just as talented as him. They just wrestled the British style, where Will was very much a high flyer. And he was doing 630s at local indies as early as like 2015, 2016, somewhere around there, maybe even 14. I remember live viewing his debut in New Japan and just flipping out. And afterwards, I was like, bro, it's so great that you're there. I'm so happy for you and stuff, And obviously, when people fall away, I haven't talked to him in quite a while. But he was loving our stepdad stuff early on, and I'm so happy for him. I feel like he's one of us. It's great to see him succeed and continue to go on, and his friends are still wrestling locally, and they're still having a great time. So the seeds of backyard wrestling sprout such amazing growth. I mean, BXW, when we were talking about how I booked BXW and I was wrestling BXW, we didn't know Sammy Guevara was a huge fan of BXW and watching our yard stuff. We didn't know Donovan Dijak was watching our stuff because they weren't names. They weren't even like wrestlers yet. But what we did mattered to them enough to take that style that we were doing. Because to me, backyard wrestling is a style. The GBWN was a style of wrestling. It was like a hyper reality, is what I used to call it at the time. It's meant to show this extreme emotion that even a jaded wrestler, because our audience was jaded wrestlers, would mark out and pop for. And to some people, they think, oh, you're killing the business, you're overdoing it, and that kind of stuff. It's a style. we're not killing the business. People used to say that Tiger Mask versus Dynamite Kid was killing the business in 1983. Like it's not killing the business. It's a different style, and there'll always be a Southern
And
style.
listen, I always say that wrestling is like Baskin Robbins. There's 31 flavors. There's a flavor for everybody. There are some people that love, again, Ospreay and Danielson. There are some people that love Undertaker versus Triple H WrestleMania. There are some people that love Cody and Roman. There are some people that love Terry Funk and Mick Foley and Japanese death matches. There are some people that love Madman Pondo. There are some people that love backyard wrestling. There are some people that they love all different forms. That's why, to me, it's all, at the end of the day, if you're having fun, you're having a good time, and people are tuned in, not everything's going to be Flair Steamboat. Everything's going to be, again, Ospreay related or anybody else, Sammy Guevara. So I think that stuff is all, important. If you want to follow Rad, that he's also on X. I'm going to put up some more links on here, but thank you for that. I want to get to some more comments here. Ethan Dixon, how you doing there? If Rad goes, Sean is going. As where Rad goes, Sean is going. And Ethan knows better than him because he lives in the UK and he's up at 2:56 in the morning. And I still love my British listeners from time because I haven't done anything UK in about 3.5 months, but I will do it in actually 2 weeks from now. But he does say Will Ospreay blows my mind every time he steps in that ring. No question about that. And I'm so glad you pointed out that it's always good when one of our own makes it. Now, you've obviously done a lot in GTS. I think about Skrilla, how Skrilla's done very well for himself. Fred Yehai is somebody else that Copper, molded. And, Shalance Royale, different people that have been in the backyard and have gone out there and had that success. I think that's what people really identify. And thank you very much for saying that there. So appreciate that. Let's get to Zilla. Yes, thank you, Zilla, for the comment. I appreciate that. We say hello to them. And I think I have another comment, but if there's not, there, let's see here. There we go. I have more questions. Okay. Let's see. I'll give Zilla actually this question. I know it. Most people would probably know it. I kind of alluded to it, but how long have you been wrestling? And basically, how long have you been wrestling for? It's the same question.
My first backyard wrestling match that I would call a normal backyard wrestling match was late 2008. And my first pro match was January 10th, 2016, which I didn't even know I was going to wrestle that day. I thought I was just being a commentator.
We spoke about that here.
Yeah. So those are the two. Depending on who I'm around, it's one answer or the other.
I understand that. Trust me. There are, I have some guys here that are trained and some guys who are not. Yeah. Ethan would like to say, I'm wide awake at the moment, so I thought I would pop on and see what's going on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I know Ethan wants to hang me sometimes, but I think it's a good time. Let me present to you a couple of things as we're getting toward kind of the second half near the end of the show. First of all, I have to formally give you this because you are 88th member of the Hall of Fame. I will certainly give this to you when we're off the air, but I wanted you to have my John Hancock, and I worked extra hard. Actually, I worked on this. The reason I worked for 7 minutes. Actually, I timed it on my signature because Jovi would be watching, and Jovi, all he does when he watches these, always look for the signature. So I wanted to, first of all, make that clear. So obviously, congratulations on this date, September 4th. 2024, and I wanted to do something else a little bit unexpected, but I wanted to honor the Global Backyard Wrestling News on this day, that it's actually GBYWN Day on all Sportswire Radio platforms. So I realized that this would be special for some people that will tune into this, and obviously the magnitude of my speech inducting you in the Hall of Fame is really a lot to do with your history in the GBYWN and what it meant to the present day of this platform. I don't think I'm carrying the torch. I think it's two different things, but I think the spirit of it is very similar, yes. But there was only one Rad Hazard. There was only one GBYWN, and I can't write and I can't do what you did there, but I can certainly do this, and we want you to have it, and I'll take care of you off the air presenting this to you. So I wanted to say congratulations. And speaking of people from Australia, is my buddy Ace Reed, who's also attempting to go from the backyard to overseas here in Wrestle in America. He's very much hell-bent, and he's doing some training as well. And he's another one of those, obviously, young up-and-comers. And he's saved enough money to come to America next year, and he wants to wrestle one of the guys in my chat, Jack Delter. And he is getting some pro training, and he's in Australia. And he's a young whippersnapper, and he's excited to be here. And also, Sean Jovi says some called me a signature critique artist. Yes, that's why you were here in the gathering tonight rather than in the Magic of the Gathering show. But GVYWN, never forget. Yes, thank you. D Savage, I think, left the chat, but thank you, Zilla, for that. Okay, so I'm going to take this off the screen and this off the screen and go like this. I think it's a good time now to talk about September 28th and 29th. Because, a lot of the things you saw here just now is about the GBYWN, and we're actually having a little bit of a reformation of that. We're having a bit of a reformation. I'll put up that on the screen actually right now for the audience so we can see. I'll put up to a couple of other things here. But first, let's go and get this up on the screen because I think you're in the second photo. Yep, I got you in the second photo. So I'm going to take this on the screen and go like this for the audience because I have two of these. I'm going to pop it right there. So BYW Community Golden Triangle Media presents in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. You guys are all at it one more for the road, and it's 15 years later. And tell me how excited you are about this going out there one more time is Rad Hazard.
So there's a lot to say here. First of all, just to get to the previous comment, I've personally seen people go from America to Australia, from Canada to Australia, from Australia to the United States to wrestle in the yard. It can and will happen again, and I hope you were the one to do it, my friend.
He's the man a lot of people are pinning their hope on. He came onto my platform and announced all of a sudden I've got $1,500+ Australian money saved, and this is my dream. I mean, he's the one that a lot of people are pinning their hope on. I mean, this young man is, come out of thin air, and he's been honing his craft for the past couple of years. He's got the spirit, and he wants to do it. I just watched his match, by the way, on a trampoline. Pretty good match, and he's, he really wants to do it. I mean, he's hell-bent on it.
Yeah, I want him to know that he is not the first of many Australians who've desperately wanted to have these dream matches with wrestlers that they highly respected in the States. And I'm telling him they happened and they are reality, and you can do it. It isn't a pipe dream. You can actually do that. It'll be an incredible moment. It'll be worth it because it was worth it for them. It can definitely happen. And beyond that, I thank you very much for the GYWN Day. I'm glad you didn't put that it was Rad Hazard GYWN or anything like that because no. I wasn't even the first man to coin the name. I wasn't the first man to make the forum. I was just the guy that helped lead it.
No, I would never do that. We always give it to.
And that's a big part of the community. It's just letters. You know what I mean? Like it's no one person ran the thing or anything. Because
I tell people that all the time, even with this. I mean, I always tell people the people built this. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm here hosting it, but really, they're not here for me to just sit here for 2 hours. They really, believe in something. So I think it's the same thing with what we're going to see here coming up in 3.5 weeks in New Kensington, Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. And we even have 2 championship matches on the card. This obviously there's no GYWN logo, but that's just because this is about the entire BYW community, including the previous generation, which we called the Backyard Wrestling Link, which is the grandparents of our league back in the day, our alliance. But I'll throw a little secret at you new guys, because I know obviously you are the next generation of Backyard Wrestling. You're the present of Backyard Wrestling, and by all accounts. I didn't see that when GYWN slowly faded away over the years. But you guys came out of nowhere, came out of the darkness, and you started to form, and now we're getting super shows, and everything feels new and exciting again. To me, It's a repeat for the second time.
Yep,
I've seen this twice before, and now
I've heard some guys have said that who were at the tail end of it. Silas Walker is a guy who debuted at the tail end of it. Jack Delta has talked about that also. So there are, I think, some of the newer guys who, they don't. I don't want to say that they feel slighted a bit, but they maybe don't understand. Not that they don't understand, but there's guys that have, been a part of this, that it's been done, and there are people that, have experienced it. I think Jovi gets it because he was around then. But yeah, there's no question that you guys definitely did it before, and it's something that's new because it's being reinvented for sure.
And like the way it was done back then, obviously everyone was a little harsher of a critic back then, and so there's going to be a different slant compared to now. I like to think wrestling in general is nicer. People are nicer, and
Remy spoke about that with her
Mhm.
own struggles. She talked about that on Sunday's show, that she feels that in her return to the yard, that it's been a lot better for her than even in the GBYW went, without getting into it in those, those days, for sure.
And as someone who really respected and didn't have a close friendship, but considered Remy a friend even back then, I totally see that side where people were very. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Everyone was young and dumb, and everyone was scared, and everyone was weird. We're weird people when we're 22 in a backyard, and we're not sure if the footage is going to get out, and then we're going to get in trouble at our training school or whatever. Then there's high school drama. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know about.
Oh, listen, I'm here every day. I had a show 2 days
Mhm.
ago, and one guy got mad because one of my guests said things about his company and said things about, certain things. I don't know what was work or not. So, yeah, people get upset even every day here on this platform.
And that's always going to happen.
Yep.
But I explain all this to tell you that it is an absolute miracle that the GBYWN existed at all, because you think, oh, the GBYWN, it's run by like one guy or like two guys or something, and they organize the whole thing, and it's a big community. It wasn't. It was a self-sustaining machine. And I don't know if today's community is going to be that way. Maybe I think if the community is nicer than we were, it should be. But the alliance itself was self-contained territories of promotions where there was obviously a booker or someone that owned the company or whatever, and they would run their own thing. But when we had these super shows, everyone came together. You'd have your, I don't want to lose once in a while, but I'm talking 90% of the people, they decided who won and lost based on who had the cooler idea for a finish. It was about making everyone mark out. And I absolutely love that mindset of, it didn't matter who won or lost. It was about the performance. It was about making people pop. I cannot explain that enough. It's not about your ego. It's not about how many titles you held. I was never the world champion. I'll probably get to that in a second.
I don't believe. I don't believe in that. I think that if you go out there and put on a good match, they'll come. That's my belief.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you bring, you make it, and people will come. And even to this day, the entire time, every GBYWN champion. So I'll break kayfabe a little bit for you. I feel like it's important to explain. The GBYWN championships were considered like the NWA titles. They were defended in all these different territories. When I was helping guide it, and I'm not gonna say I ran it, I never told anyone to do anything.
Well, you were on the board of directors. It's
Yes.
well documented. You were on the board, and there were people on that board. So that was obviously, and that's not different than a lot of these, again, breaking the fourth wall, that these feds that come on my platform, they have Discord chats, they have board of directors, they have.
Man, I wish we had that back then.
Well, they have it now, but they all have something that you had a decade ago, so it's nothing out of the ordinary.
But I will say this, with the traveling champions, they got to decide who they lost the titles to. And I say that because then there was no interference, there was no drama, there was no booker that had more power than anybody else. There was the champion's prerogative, and that's because everyone understood that there was a responsibility that the champion had to make the next champion not only look good, but be a respectable part of the company. Why would you ever give a title to somebody you didn't respect? Now,
sure.
And so sometimes it became, wow, this guy's got a year-long title reign. What's going on? But I can't think of a single time where somebody lost the championship and the people weren't absolutely ballistic. They loved it. Everyone was thrilled because whoever won it, it felt like the home team was winning every single time.
Which is, I think, something a lot of these feds that come on here struggle with, because in some places guys hold a title a long time, but you're trying to connect to the moment to make the transition.
Right.
And I think that that's where, sometimes that's for some feds. Again, I'm not in the inside, so I couldn't comment on those things, but I think from watching afar that there are some people that maybe that's kind of why a promotion would have a champion for as long as it has, because they're trying to wait for that moment to make the transition meaningful. I mean, I don't know. It's obviously something that people, I'm sure, talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's very important because the local championships, the local promotion that ran their yard shows, their champions would change hands every couple of months, and that was good. And it was very storyline heavy, which is great. The world champion usually was not in the storyline unless it was like a rematch from a super show or something like that. It was very much the draw was I want to see if the guy loses the title, and I want to see the coolest finish possible, and so there was always an interest in watching it. It was like watching the lottery. Would the guy lose the title this time? We had our world championship from 2008 till now. It's only been vacated once.
Wow.
Like, it's incredible. Like, everyone has done business, if you want to think of it that way. And this is the yard. And we were able to do business better than some of these other places where they're like, oh, I don't want my local wrestling title over there in that local wrestling show.
Yeah, I've done a lot of British independent wrestling, and I remember even using this platform like 4 years ago to try to get people to like, oh, would you want to wrestle each other? It would always be that, well, nope, can't wrestle them for whatever reason because of those reasons you mostly pretty much alluded to. So yeah, unfortunately that's the nature of it, I suppose. I mean, I don't know.
You can always, there's always exceptions to the rule. I'm sure people said I don't want to lose here and there. But was it the standard? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. People wanted the best finish possible. That's what people cared about. I was the same way. When I was the pure champion, I just wanted to have really interesting pure rules matches because at that point there wasn't a Ring of Honor pure title anymore. That was like a non-existent thing. So it was kind of it was something interesting on every show where people would be like, "Oh, I've never seen a pure rules match. What is this?" And then we'd have this really interesting like technical match, which was very different from the high-flying thing Sammy Guevara wanted to see from Matt DeMorris.
Well, pure rules, a lot of that's overseas, UK. That's a big thing in the UK. That goes back to like the World of Sport days for those that may know. I mean, that's to do a pure rules wrestling match in the yard. I think that's very unique.
Absolutely. So that brings me to this show 15 years later. A lot of the feuds from 2010, 2009 are culminating to finish what is the story of Pittsburgh wrestling, but in a lot of ways, the story of the GBWN. Marcus Santafonte, who was a huge player, a kingpin in the Northeast, if you will. Sick Rick, who's actually promoting the show.
I actually just messaged Rick to come on.
There you go. Perfect. I'll vouch for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
But Sick Rick, the kingpin of the Midwest wrestling scene, they're finally meeting, for, I believe, the second time ever, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And that's a huge deal to see that. And that's another one of those things where neither of them have a title. I mean, Santafonte was world champion once. I think Rick was world tag champion once. And they were very short title reigns. They weren't all over the place. So it's really about the notoriety and the value that they had and who they were.
The match itself doesn't need a championship, pretty much.
Yep, you said it way easier than I did.
Well, I got a lot of practice because I've been here doing this so many days, but it's an exciting card. And I mean, how special is it to do this one more time with all these different talents? I know this was a video was posted about this months ago. I know that there was sort of a tease about it, but how exciting is this to do this one more time with a lot of these guys from yesteryear?
In a lot of ways, it's going to feel like home, but also new. And that's exciting because we've all grown up. We've all gotten better. A couple of guys haven't wrestled in a long time. That's understandable. But when they get there, they're going to feel revitalized. And we're going to see a style of wrestling that you don't really see in most promotions. I've wrestled, earlier you mentioned Ryan Ragnarok. I wrestled Ryan Ragnarok in GTS under a different name. He was Tanner Wilson. Yes. But when we wrestle each other, it was so vastly different from anything people usually see in GTS. They were freaking out. They're like, literally, Grim runs up to Tanner's like, why do you not wrestle like this every single week? And he's like, it's the style. You have to know the style and be safe and be willing to destroy yourself essentially to do it. And so this is a return to that style. And I'm thrilled because a lot of the people have, much like Sean Jovi himself, have evolved. They've gotten better, way past the GYWN days. And even if they have retired, they're coming back for one last show, which many of these people are. it's going to be unlike anything we've seen, at least in the backyard scene, in a very long time.
Yeah, I think this is really, in a way, it's an ode to yesteryear and doing it for a new generation to get a chance to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, obviously to see that. And I'm really hopeful that we could obviously talk to Rick about that. I understand the importance of it and what would it mean. Let me ask you, though, this, and I know there's somebody in the chat that was actually in the GBYWN, not named Sean Jovi, who you have some history with. I'll certainly get to him in a minute. But in terms of just Sean Jovi and Remy Ravage, they were self-proclaimed Global Backyard Wrestling Network rejects. Why were they rejects? Do you remember any, Remy had a few things to say about it, and Sean Jovi pretty much talked about his reasons, and he didn't listen well, he didn't take the right advice. Was that true? I mean, you wrestled on a show with Jovi. I know Remy, you knew a little bit. I mean, Remy had a few things to say about you, and you obviously caught them. But
oh yeah,
I mean, what were they like 10 plus years ago?
They were nervous. They were
why?
So everything they said, absolutely true. I'm going to throw that out there right now. We were young, and a lot of people didn't have great communication skills. I kind of think is a part of it. And there was a lot of clicks. They were in the Midwest area where people really valued talent over anything else.
Sure.
And if you're like a Chris Castle, people look up ICW with Chris Castle.
Yep. Jovi's mentioned him here.
A phenomenal wrestler that I believe only had, I could be wrong, but I think he only had a handful of pro matches. Yet he wrestled like a 5-star wrestler in 2010 in a yard and on base. And he had a phenomenal style that was incredible. And we had many people like that. I wasn't like that. I wasn't that kind of person. I had to get over with my character work at first. And I got some interesting looks and people were just very nervous around me as well. But I never took it as an offensive thing. I was so outside the box because I was traveling to all these companies. I wasn't entrenched in one. I was kind of everywhere. So in being that, I think people gave me kind of like it gave me this weird aura that I didn't even ask for or want. It was just kind of there where they're like, oh, that's just the traveling wrestler guy.
Was that grueling going over to all these? I mean, I know now you're traveling, but I think it's a much more contained traveling. But when you were doing it those years ago and, going to these places and, who really knows what could happen? Was that grueling at all, that travel?
I welcomed it. I absolutely welcomed it. I love
some guys come on here now and they're like, it's really tough. And I'm going to tell you why. And we have other wrestlers now who are doing it like you did. And some of them, they take it differently than others. That's why I was really curious. I didn't get a chance to ask you that the first time.
I can only go off of my experience, and absolutely everyone's experience is valid. Everyone's different, and their bodies are different. Remember, people have aches and pains in weird places, and I totally understand that if they're in a car ride for 16 hours. Oh, here's my chair shot. Yeah, yep. That was great. That got me super over. But the traveling, I always welcome because as a kid, I traveled in a semi truck days at a time with my father. So I was used to traveling. I love traveling. Always loved traveling. And when I lived in Las Vegas, I was able to I could get into an airport and on a plane in like 20 minutes.
So you were already used to it. That's the difference between you and other people, that they never traveled, and all of a sudden to do it the way they're doing it, it's a huge culture shock. And just as we see the culture shock there, I wanted to put it in the background to kind of as a tribute, but that's how you were able to adjust and it didn't bother you because you were traveling as a kid, obviously not to wrestle, but you were still traveling around with your dad. And that's why it made you so obviously used to it. But speaking of people that I know you've shared a locker room with in TF crew that was in the GBYWN all those days ago was Mr. Doc Holiday. He says hi.
Love you, Doc. I saw Doc just recently at GTS. I love Doc Holiday. Absolute legend.
Yes.
In the backyard. And it doesn't matter what era. He's the legend in all eras.
I don't know how he still does it. He's doing hardcore wrestling. I seen him in He wrestles guys like Eddie Exile. I've seen him do things in just TF Crew. I've seen him in GTS and all these other places, and he's still going.
And he's got that style. You'll see. We used to call him Super Show Doc Holliday because when he was on at the Super Shows, he would have matches.
He's a national treasure almost. He's a national wrestling treasure. Doc Holliday.
Absolutely. I remember a story about one of the best friends. What was it? Chuck Taylor was live tweeting a Doc Holliday yard match that was happening in Cooperstown, New York. So the footage wasn't live, but he was live tweeting as he was watching it. And couldn't stop complimenting Doc Holliday and his ridiculous bumps on the base.
I watched him. I think it was got to be like 2 months ago, and he wrestled for Jake Dvorak's company. What he was doing in that. I was like, I don't know how this guy was getting up afterwards. Then I just watched him in the TF Crew the Death Row show there. I just watched what he did there too, and this guy just finds ways to just go out there, and he wanted to say hello. So. All right, so I guess
I'm saying I'll say this right now. Any promoter anywhere in the country, if you need a match of the night, Rad Hazard versus Doc Holliday will be that. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I would hope to see. Has Doc been invited to Pittsburgh, or am I not allowed to say anything about that?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm going to bring Rick here. Well, I'll tell you what.
Maybe it's a travel thing. I don't know.
Well, he travels already he's in upstate New York. I see him in Massachusetts. I see him in Connecticut. I mean, I'll tell you what, I have Rick here. I'm going to make sure of it now that he just got my message. I mean, I'm sure when Rick will be here, maybe I'll ask.
There's absolutely no way Doc wasn't invited. I know that.
Okay. So Doc, I know Jovi said he was aware of it, and I think he'll try his best to get down there. I know Remy, I spoke to Remy about it off the air. So I know Jovi and Remy know about it. I don't know if they'll go or not. That's obviously a question for them. But speaking of Jovi, very quickly, I do want to make the announcement. I promised for Jovi that I will be honoring, speaking of Wisconsin backyard wrestling legends, Tim Mecca. Tim Mecca, of course, was a staple in the Wisconsin backyard wrestling circuit, and Tim Mecca is going to go in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame 3 weeks from today. He'll be in the Hall of Fame, and we'll let Sean Jovi and some of his cohorts in Wisconsin do the honors alongside me to induct Tim Mecca in the Hall of Fame. So it'll be 3 weeks from today. So very excited about that. And we see Jovi. But yeah, I wanted to put up the memory lane. And, how did you like doing this here? How was that like for you doing that one more time?
Doing this Bag of Wrestling weekly episode was so much fun because I have always been obsessed with character work in wrestling, and I feel like early on, because I'm traveling, I don't live in the area. People don't see me face to face until I'm at a super show. So when I'm doing character work all the time in 2009 and 2010, people just assume that's how I am. They just assume I'm the bad guy and I'm an evil businessman and I'm muhaha, and they're like, oh yeah, he's playing it up, but he's probably like that. You know what I mean? So to do an episode of Bag of Wrestling Weekly like this, where I am kind of being myself. I am very silly. I'm a really wacky person in real life, and I never really got to show that in a super show scenario because everyone's planning, everyone's doing their thing. I'm the bad guy. I am constantly being, evil minion, or I have evil minions doing all my dirty work and everything. And so there's never a moment where someone's like, hey, let's talk about Freakazoid for 5 minutes, or whatever, like that. And so even now, like, I have way more friends from the GBW era now than when it was happening.
Why is that? Why?
It's because back then everyone thought about, I'll put it this way. Everyone kind of thought about themselves back then to the point where now everyone thinks about each other. If there's selfishness back then when it was like, I want to get over, I want to have this big moment, I want to have the big moves. Like I said, it wasn't about winning. That was never the thing. It was about moments. Where now it's, I want to give, I want to, give this match to everyone. I want to showcase to everyone. It's way more selfless. And I think that came over time of us just evolving and being like, I kind of like that guy. I didn't know much about him. And, or they're watching a music video themselves and they go, oh yeah, I wrestled that guy like 5 years ago. And I wonder what he's up to. And, and they wouldn't have thought back then because they're like, oh, I'll see him next week. I'll see him in 2 months.
Let me ask you this question. I know there's a couple of influential comments I'll get to as we're here with Dad Radley Belmont. He's the newest member of the Sportzwire Radio Hall of Fame. We're going to be with him for another about 20 or so minutes here. We obviously know he's a very busy man. He's getting ready for some big shows coming up this weekend. You're going to see him all throughout the month of October, and you'll see him in GTS as well. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. You have voiced figuratively and literally where all wrestling matters. And if you're here on YouTube, please hit the sub button for me at Sportswire Radio 6579. Do you think that in the early formations of the GBYWN, things would have been different if there was Instagram, TikTok, X, all these platforms? Because, when you started, there wasn't quite, you had the message form. I mean, Jovi talked about that here and there, but do you think things would have been different if you guys would have had the social media like it is today?
Yeah, it would have been different for sure. I think the success of the time, like the way the community worked and everything, and how the titles worked, and by worked I mean we're successful. Like the way everything was successful was because there was a one-stop shop for everyone communicating in one place. I don't know how it works now. Obviously, if there's like an Instagram area that everyone goes to,
I mean,
or
a lot
Reddit
of it. I
or
can tell you
something.
with this, it's a lot of this Discord chat. There's Facebook. There's a lot of Facebook group chats. There's a lot of, just stuff. Mm-hmm. I think Facebook's big with it. I think Instagram, is very big. I think Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, combination of Discord and Facebook group chats. A lot of that.
And so I'm sure it comes off as a lot of chatter, a lot of talk. And back then it was very condensed. Everyone was waiting for this music video to drop, and then it would drop in one spot. And even though it was on YouTube, it would link to the one forum, and everyone would get on there, and everyone would compliment it. And even something as simple as compliments were judged and criticized, and became like your voice. And jerks were obviously out there, and people could see it immediately. And some people were trolls still. So that existed back then. We definitely had trolls, no doubt. People years later were like, oh, I was always trolling. I'm like a nice guy. And we're like, oh, we didn't know. So that's always been a thing. But I feel like the condensed nature of, I remember like I would get off work, drive home. We had to drive home because I didn't have a smartphone or anything. Drive home, get on the forum, and you just see what happened that day. And it was exciting. It really was a one-stop shop. It was like, watching. It's the difference between going on your phone now to see the news and going home in the 90s to watch the news at 11.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, in the 90s, that's different. It was no, I mean, I am just old enough to remember not having a computer. I remember, like there was nothing. I didn't even like talk to people on the if I was lucky, I talked to one or two people on the phone. It was like the only way I would speak to anybody is if I just saw them you just assumed you see everybody same time in the street or knock on their door. It's a different world now in that. I have to get to a couple of comments from important people. First of all, it's Copper Dragon, the one and only Mr. Copper Dragon, the legendary Copper Dragon, who doesn't normally appear in the chat. So this is for good reason he's here. I'm honored too, because he obviously doesn't come on here unless it's important. The GBYWN era was a highly competitive time in the game. Guys used to take insane spots and risk to reach the top of the Power 20 rankings. It was a privilege to have been a part of it. Good times. Guys used to go insane, both production and video promotion-wise. Wide distribution control was like gold or Bitcoin. It was all about views then.
That is a huge part of the community that is lost today. And I don't mean lost as in like it's bad or good or anything. It's just, it's non-existent today. You got to remember the GBWN started as a forum. It started in like 2006, way before there was a community and titles and all that kind of stuff. Like it was just, this is where global Becker Wrestling news is, in this forum. That's it. And back then, YouTube just started.
Yep.
Not everyone even has a camera to film their wrestling. So at these points, when they're doing these huge shows, or at least local shows that they're trying to do, you can't post an hour and a half long show. So what they would do is they make a music video. And that's where the idea of we need the craziest spots possible comes from. And that's why he's talking about the highly competitive nature, because of the in the space in a music video is so small that you have to do something insane to get into the music video.
Sure.
Nowadays, I see most backyard wrestling shows, they release a full show or clips, whatever the case may be. Back then,
some of them do the big full show. Maybe they'll do a match teaser. Or
sure, yeah. We did that at BXW. I would make a show teaser for every single event. But we did a clipped format. I would edit out most pinfalls in the matches just to make the matches shorter. And which sounds weird by today's standards, but back then people were complaining to me that matches were still too long.
TikTok and YouTube, there are some companies that are doing the shorts also. They're doing it to get the subs up. That gets the reactions, and those are things. And we do have a Discord chat. Sean will kill me if I don't put it up there, but it's the Discord chat, which we have Pittsburgh up here. We have that
phenomenal match.
There we go. Yep, phenomenal match. We've got stuff from the All Wrestling Matters group. Sean has put a couple of different things here, some information. We have a bunch of different stuff. That's the group. If you'd like to join it, that's the Discord group. And also, Mr. Jovi wants to say, I forgot about the Power 20. Definitely never made that list. Only the top 20 form spammers. So who knew he was a form spammer? Now he just spams onto Sportswire streams every so often. No, absolutely, we love Sean. But
I'm happy to say I was on the Power 20 at one point, and that was very cool to see, because I like I said, I have no control over that. So watching the GWC.
Well, it's a big thing now today. There's this thing that some people are getting upset about. Some guys in the chat got upset because there's this thing. It's called BYW Hub, and they have a rankings. And some wrestlers who are sort of like in that underground independent lane, that tweener lane, are upset because trampoline guys are on there. And some guys are upset because their Fed's not on there. And that's why I don't do rankings. I got way too many people that come on this platform. I got way too many people over. So I just say, listen, God bless. You can do anything you want. If you're not harming nobody, it gets people talking. I share it on Instagram. I have no problem with that. And, look, I don't do rankings. There's too many promotions out there. You had 80 in your day. I don't know if 80 come on this platform, but I'd say at least a good 20, 15, 20 have been on here. But I definitely am not in the rankings business. Whatever else wants to do rankings, that's great. I could talk with you forever, but I got to get in Gabe Sayers for a few minutes, because obviously TF Crew is also coming up here. I know you got some stuff that you've done there for them, and I know that Gabe is here tomorrow to talk about the Death Row show. So, I mean, what's your future there? And I know I spoke with you about Gabe last time here. I know you see Gabe a lot in GTS, but we'll see you more in TF Crew or what coming down in the future?
Absolutely. TF Crew, surprisingly enough, the first promotion I've worked at solely as a singles wrestler since 2017.
Okay, almost the
beginning. So that's this is the beginning of the solo run, and Papa, like I said, Papa Bear is always invited, but he's a little busy right now. So
he's very good at sports betting. He's very good at picking odds, over and under. He's very good. He
can become a millionaire. We can have Stepdad's Wrestling Federation, and that'll be the end of it.
I'm close to that range. I mean, maybe I could be your tag partner instead. I don't have his size though.
Well, you and me, we're going all the way to Alabama. We're going to Ohio. We're going all over. Let's make it happen.
Who knows? Stay tuned.
But yeah, so the TF Crew, obviously they welcome me with open arms. It's awesome. It's great to see that next generation of people from the underground coming in and doing their own thing. Obviously they use that training school, that great venue.
Paul Romo, Mario Mancini. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my first time there as well. So it was exciting to be a part of something that had so much old and familiar, but with new and exciting.
Kind of like here, it's a lot of blend. You had underground guys, you had the hardcore guys, you had guys like just Jeff Novo, sort of, again, another indie up and comers. A lot of nice little, again, kind of like here, it's a melting pot of different wrestlers. I thought that was just really what I think stands to me most out about TF Crew. It's not your kind of quintessential underground show in that sense, because of where it's done, who wrestles in it. So it's a nice little, again, a melting pot of different places, different people and such.
I absolutely agree. Like, not only the cool venue, but also the fact that it was like, oh, I know Jeff Noba from Truly Independent Wrestling when we were at the same show as back then. I know people from WCW era.
I would imagine hardcore was a name that went back way back in the day, right?
Sure, yeah, and all like guys from Immortal Championship Wrestling now working for TF Crew and like stuff like that. Like I was never in Immortal Championship Wrestling, but I knew the guys. Obviously, I went through all that stuff. So there's so much more that I was able to connect with outside of just, oh, it's a promotion you've never seen or heard of, or that kind of thing. I knew Era Spiral and Lawrence Spiral. Obviously.
You wrestled Lawrence Spiral, obviously.
I've wrestled both. I've wrestled both. I've defeated both, and I think I've defeated both and been defeated by both. I could be wrong, but definitely wrestled both of them multiple times. Great couple. But I should go on a double date with them at some point. But anyway,
who knows? You never know. You never know.
And you even talk about the main event of this particular show being the dog collar match between Mikey Anarchy and Angel Santiago. Obviously,
another guy, Angel Santiago, been big name in GTS, and he's traveled all over. He's done like celebrity boxing and
Angel's doing great
Mikey Anarchy, obviously, so you know him very well.
Oh yeah, and Mikey Anarchy and I. Main eventing one of the nights of Grimomania in a ladder match for two titles. So easily one of the highest profile matches I had. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say it's probably the number one or number two highest profile match he had there. And I hope he comes back. I hope Mikey comes back to GTS, and I hope he keeps traveling to all these other places and kills it because he's a phenomenal talent. Obviously,
I really I've had him here once I just found him to be a really, for a hardcore wrestler of his stature, just a really humble guy. I really thought he was just a really, really nice guy. I hope I'm not, hurting his character, but I just thought he was just a really down to earth guy. He just realized what to me, struck most to me when he came here. Just really liked him a lot. That's what I like a lot about the TF Crew roster is a lot of the talent I've either known directly or they've been on here. Obviously, Gabe, I mentioned Jake Dvorak, Justin Abel Sane. Obviously, Eddie Exile is a name I know very well. Hardcore, Jimmy Controversy, but a lot of these names, I've spoken to them. Santiago's been here. Obey's been here. Yes, the Obey's been here. I mean, a lot of people from the TF Crew have been here. So I really think it's just a good mix of people. And I think the venue, they're doing it the right way, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think that's, why it's a fun little company. And I think that's why, it's a good place that I'm looking forward to seeing you more often.
Yeah, I agree. I do not associate with riffraff. I don't waste my time with people who are just going down the drain. I don't see that with TF Crew. I see things going up and up and up. And I think everyone that watches sees a better product with every show they do.
Yeah, and I think Gabe, him learning through the learning tree of Mario Mancini and Paul Roma, their experience speaks volumes. I think Gabe, what he's done in evolving in terms of what he's done with himself, I think he's come a long way. I'm sure he'd tell you this, on and off the round on what he would still will say tomorrow. But there's no question that because Gabe is Gabe. But I think he's really done a lot of good things, and that's why I'm proud to support the company. I'm a Patreon subscriber, so Gabe owes me the welcome video for that, but we'll definitely see you there for sure. Let me get to Big Man Cam before I get to a couple of more things. This new rankings thing ranked him number 2 1 week. He appreciated, but it's nothing I'm going to take to heart because if they put me on or off, and that's why I think I don't get in the middle of rankings. People want to do whatever they want.
No, I agree. I agree.
I know it's been obviously an historic evening to have you, but anything else that you want to talk about, anything else you want to share before we, sign off for the evening? Anything else that we should know, Mr. Rad Dad?
Yeah. One thing you brought up at the very beginning of this show that, my memory comes and goes, too many chair shots, but it continued to come back to me throughout this entire conversation is the fact that wrestling, and I'm saying that as a broad term for any genre, any style, wrestling saves lives. It
does. No, really, it really does. There's a lot of people, like I know you were having some fun in the video we saw about the GBYWN and what it meant, but really, I do think that in backyard, from what I've seen in this circuit, that wrestling's meant more than just wrestling and wrestling somebody. I've heard people talk about their mothers dying and wrestling kept them going. Remy talked about depression. I mean, people on here have talked about suicide. I won't name wrestlers, but there's been a few in this chat that have talked about mental health, and they were crying every day, and just being out there, being here. I mean, so there's been a lot of people, that've dealt. We had one wrestler, I won't name his name because he's a hardcore wrestler, talk about something happened to him with his ex, and he was like, he considered killing himself. So there's a lot of real everyday issue. We had one wrestler came on here a couple of days ago who went through a breakup, and it's unfortunately in the middle of a promotion he worked for, so it's really awkward. So I mean, there's been like a lot of just everyday problems that I think in some ways I do go back to that lyric, and we hear everyone's problems, but I'll still be there. And I think that that's really, in a way, what you did and what backyard and just wrestling is in general, from my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think of it as I'm very much a person that was very depressed at times in my life. I consider most wrestlers have probably been in that scenario one time or another.
It's a lonely travel. It's a hard grind. It's you wonder what you're doing. The money's not very good, and people look at it and say, "What are you doing out there?" And it's tough. It's not there's not a good support system because it's a very lone wolf mentality. There's a lot. It's dog eat dog. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could definitely understand. That.
And there's definitely something to be said for, at least with this style and everything, that, like Remy said, we are kind of the misfits. We're the outcasts at times, especially a lot of people early on in their careers. They haven't met a lot of people. They haven't done a lot of things. They're worried about the future. They're worried if they have a future. I was definitely that same type of person. And the one thing that I feel draws that mindset of person to wrestling is the fact that wrestling, by definition, is a collaboration. You cannot wrestle yourself and have a successful program. You cannot just stand in a ring by yourself and produce wrestling. You can produce a promo, but without somebody to promo about, you have nothing. You can create your own character, but without a foil for your character to have conflict with, you are nothing. Wrestling itself is a collaboration. And I feel like for me, wrestling drew me in because it meant having to interact with these people, learning who they are, them learning about me. It almost forces you to befriend, if not become friends, at least befriend people you would never know in the real world. I could say honestly that probably, I don't even know if there's a probably, I would say arguably 99 to 100% of the people I know today, I would not know if I never wrestled. I would never live in the Northeast. I would never have met the love of my life. I would not have a single friend that I have now without wrestling. And that's a very extreme case. But a lot of people that are alone and they're afraid and they don't know if they have futures, I've been there. And they use wrestling as an escape, but eventually it becomes medicine. And as long as you don't become too addicted to the medicine, it can be very helpful, very hopeful.
Yeah, I had a British wrestler come on the Tribal Cheese, and his last match, he wrestled about 5 months ago. He said, I'm not doing anymore. I'm struggling with mental health. And, he talked about his problems here. I mean, there's a lot of people that they've come on here and they've shared their everyday feelings. And if people have talked about, deaths, they've talked about just job situations, struggling, and they've talked about, everyday life problems. And I think that that's why it's important that what you've done to, obviously, with the GBYWN, but, today that, we have Sportzwire, and it's great. It's not for me. I mean, listen, like I said, people, they don't really want to see me. They like to see the other people on it, which is great. Listen, trust me, I'm fine with it. It's great. But to, give other people that opportunity, there's no question you did those things. And I think that that's why it was very monumental to have you here. I know you don't come here very often because you're obviously a very busy man, but it's always good to have someone like you because, there are, I think, a lot of, and tonight the response, I think, was bigger than the one you had, the first time you came in. Because I think people, they were really excited about this one because you, in many ways, sure, there's been other people in the backyard that have been maybe more successful, but I think you are one of everybody here. And I think that's why so many people, they came out tonight and they were really fired up for you to come on because they were just, there's a lot of history there. I think Sean Jovi, a lot of credit to him because I also think that a lot of the newer guys from these different promotions, it's no fault to them. They don't know or understand what you in Copper, since he's here, laid those seeds for 10, 15 years ago. So to be able to have a bridge, and Sean, Doc Holliday to an extent, but Doc hasn't been here on Sportswire. That's really Gabe. It's on Gabe being Gabe. But obviously, no, we love Gabe. I'm sure Gabe will hear that tomorrow. But the point is that, Sean's an important guy that was a bridge to that era. So it's important to have somebody like you here to talk about that. Yes, I know I could have spoke a lot more about GTS, and that's great. But I really feel that the people that you're talking to, they appreciate you more from the GBYWN, and to understand that tonight, I think that speaks volumes. Than to have this event, it's perfectly timed a few weeks from now. I think that's why this was really a monumental show, and I think one that it was good for a lot of people, and I'm really happy and again very delighted that you're here, and obviously we like people to check this out as well, and I want to obviously get to closing because I know you're a very busy man. You're out, she's soon to be getting ready for the married life, and we don't want to keep you here for 3 hours. Now, guys like Jack Delta could be here for 3 hours because that's just how they roll. You're a busy, very, very busy man, and I'd like to now give you the floor now, give you some closing thoughts on this really historic night. And I hope, obviously, you'd come back. I know you get asked all the time to do podcasting, but I really think, again, this one, it is in a way, like I said the first time, you're at home for. And I really hope that you would come back and just thank you for all that you've done for us here in this sport. And I'd like to pass the baton to you now.
Oh, thank you very much. I really do feel like this is a homecoming in a lot of ways, because even though I've only been on Sportswire Radio once, the content we talk about, the audience you have, obviously they go deep into the roots of my history. And so many podcasts, I only get to talk about one part of it, where here I get to talk about all of me.
Well, this is the only one. Now, I really, not now. I'm gonna not be humble. This is the only one. There's really nobody else out there. Now, there are guys that do hardcore. There are guys that do some of the independent. There are guys that do the 2K streaming. And again, God bless them. There are guys that do backyard. But this is the only one really where Tarzan Duran's been here. Rad Dad's been here. And then there's guys that have Sean Jovi that have been here. Then there are guys that Jimmy Controversy have been. Then there are guys like Dean Allmark, who's a living legend. So this is the only platform where everybody gets blended in. There's no other platform, I can humbly say, that has that. That's why it was so important to have you here to talk about that history that you've been a part of this time.
And you brought up a really good point that I want to let everyone out there know and understand, is that Sean Jovi, and he'll tell you this firsthand, I'm sure he's actually probably said it a million times, Sean Jovi in 2010 was the bottom of the barrel.
He did.
The GYWN. He was the low, and I'm not saying as a person, I'm talking about as a person on the card, a wrestler on the card. He was the bottom of the barrel. He was the opening match style. He was the lowest of the low, new guy, if you want to even think of it that way. And he's the one that today, what is it, like 15, 16 years later, whatever it is, he's the bridge.
Guys love him here. I mean, listen.
Yeah, and they love him.
Everybody from every Fed, he comes on his own Fed. People have mixed opinions on, but when Jovi, I love Jovi. Everywhere I go, Jovi, I love him. I love Jovi because they see him and he's just this figure that, I mean, you'd almost have to pay someone. Even if you paid somebody to put a gun to their head, they still couldn't come up with something bad to say about Jovi. He's really just, I mean, he's universally, I mean, he's the most beloved figure, I think, in the backyard currently. And who would have guessed that 15 years ago?
No, and I want everyone out there to know that, like, that it's phenomenal that that's happened for him because of where he was 15, 16 years ago. And obviously his wrestling's improved greatly. His promo skills improved greatly. His confidence improved, all that stuff. But what I see and why I've been friends with him since, I don't know, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there, is because he's had the exact same enthusiasm and passion for wrestling, the exact same, no less, the exact same passion for wrestling that he's had back then. And that helped fuel him all the way through all the criticism that he used to get, all the pity he used to get. It's fueled him to become a better wrestler in the ring, but he's still the same Sean Jovi as a passionate lover of the sport
He
of
was the
professional
first
wrestling.
yarder, I believe. He's one of the first or second yarders officially that actually came on the Sportswire. He was the first. A little over 2 years ago. He was the first one of two individuals that were to come on from the yard. You know,
I'm a frontiersman at that. How about that? So yeah, like I want people out there to know if you feel down and if you feel like you're at the bottom of the barrel, maybe you are. Maybe it's undeniable. You are the bottom of the barrel. You're the worst of the worst. You absolutely suck, and they barely put you on the show. Well, that was Sean Jovi, and now people consider him a legend.
they do.
And it's not because he got angry and took his ball and went home. It wasn't because he shot on somebody. It wasn't because he stiffed somebody. And that's Sean Jovi no showed again. No, he never did any of that stuff. He just stayed passionate and he kept fighting the good fight and doing what he thought was right. He did the wrestles, and he turned out to be this fantastic legend. I could not be happier for him to be. And he's continuing on from where guys like myself have not. We've moved on to other avenues of wrestling, and I love that he was able to do that. I would have done that if I got no success on the indies. I feel like I would have tried to do that too. I'm so happy that his success comes from the thing he loved the most, the backyard wrestling, the underground wrestling that he was so passionate about. That's his success. And only he can have that success. There will be no other Sean Jovi. I would not have been another Sean Jovi. He is the one and only. And that's something to be admired, and it's something to study. So if you absolutely suck, you can be a legend. You just have to want it, and you have to love it. You have to love it.
No, and I think that's what guys know, that they can identify with him because he is unabashedly proud to be a yarder. He's not going in, like Remy talked about before we sign off. Remy's talked about going to training again. There are people that are on this platform that I want to be an indie wrestler. So there are people here, half of them want to train, others do not. So Sean Jovi is a proud, unabashed yarder underground guy. I think that people know that he's honest. He's honest, and they know that he's not going to go and do anything but be himself. And I think that that's why he's gotten a second run at this. And I think that that's why people identify with him. And I think that that's why also we want people to go hit that sub button on YouTube. You can go check out Stepdad's, especially Rad Dad on X. Check him out on Rumble even. I don't have Rumble quite, but you can catch him out on Rumble, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, so many great places. Please support Rad Dad. Rad Dad has been so much to our community. Obviously, he has been so gracious. A man of his stature. Jimmy Controversy would be out the door in 50 minutes. Let's go. He'd be like, let's go. I got to go. He'd just be tuning us out. Tarzan, what's your question? We'd be off in about an hour and 8 minutes. Yeah, Tarzan's Tarzan, which is all good. There are some people that, are what they are. But this man, ladies and gentlemen, he was so gracious with his time. Kind of like Copper. Copper, when he was here, so gracious with his time. And that's why we need to support those that support us. Please support Rad Dad. I can't thank him enough. And yes, Jovi is a very good human being. Very happy he is with us on the team. And I can't thank you enough. We have to let you go because we know we got a lot of stuff that you have to do coming up here. Get ready for work, training.
Tom, let me throw one thing at you before you sign off. I have to say this. I wanted to say it last time. I gotta say, I hear a lot of people, including yourself, saying that, oh, he's the new Rad Hazard. Tom Bryce, the new Rad Hazard, the new guy leading the charge and stuff like that. I disagree wholeheartedly.
I'm glad I agree. I'm not.
What I did is so different from how you do. I brought a bunch of people together through a news channel on YouTube and convinced them to work together because they all wanted to see themselves on this news channel that everyone was watching because everyone was on it. That's the secret of how it worked and why it was viewed highly and stuff, because everyone watched it because everyone was on it. You guide the story of wrestling through the All Wrestling Matters brand by literally letting them tell the story for you. You guide the history of what we're doing now. It's totally different from the way
It
I
is
do it.
different. It's a
It's super
totally different dynamic. I went back and watched what you did. It's apples and oranges. It's a completely different thing. There's no comparison to what you did and what I'm doing here. You just can't.
Just like we said at the beginning, I wouldn't have the voice. I couldn't hold my voice like you
Well,
do.
that's a different conversation.
No
I will
way.
tell you.
I was able to
praying for me with the voice.
Yeah, I was able to get lightning in a bottle at a certain time, and you're doing the same now in your own way. And so,
this has been 6 years. I have done a lot. I've done college. I have a background in college sports. I've done news. I mean, this is not, this was not lightning in a bottle. This was like, I finally now I'm getting like neighbors and people in my own community, people I know for years that are like, oh, wow, you really are like, it's my mother even. Actually, where's the link? Where's the link to the shows? I watch you on YouTube now. For years, when I started doing this, it was like, what, this podcast? What the hell? Please stop the podcast. Do something else. People were like, I don't want to listen to you. It was just like, but for whatever reason, through the grace of God, I just kept going. I mean, I did different things. I did British wrestling, and even then people would tune me, why are you talking to these British guys? They're boring. They can't talk. And then I do the backyard, and that's the light. It was the trick, the backyard and the underground. And like, that's really, but really in the last, I want to say like 9 months, the last 8 or 9 months is where I've had people that like, were like, okay, it's good. I didn't realize you were this. When I was starting, I was on Skype, I was on SoundCloud, and it was like through muffled headphones, and it was like a different time. But like, it was definitely not lightning in the bottle, but whatever you say, I'll take, because you are still a living legend, and I got a long way to go. I'll never be in your shoes, but I thank you for everything that you've done. No, you've done so much for us, and I can't thank you enough, and I want to obviously let you go, but before I do that, one more time, that's your information. I'm going to put up all the links here on social media in writing, so you have that also. So please support Rad Dad. All those links there. Please support him. You can catch him coming up here for Sanctuary Wrestling. You can see him here also in Connecticut. You can see him all throughout the circuit. Lakewood, New Jersey. You can see him through the Northeast, TF Crew. Please support independent wrestling. Independent wrestling is also the fabric of our circuit and our scene. There's nothing like watching live wrestling. One of my friends is Chris Urban, who was actually returning to the ring in New Jersey. He was trained by Amazing Red at House of Glory. So I always want to support our independent wrestlers. Rad Dad has done that. He is a guy that grew up in our community, served our community, and now he is doing it on the biggest and the brightest stages here in prime time. And he is definitely a part of a movement he helped build without even knowing it. Congratulations, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for being so generous. I can't wait to hopefully see you soon. And thank you again, and I definitely can't wait to watch you. I'll definitely be mentioning you to Gabe tomorrow. I'm sure Gabe will have a few things to say and some about that, and I look forward to that. But until then, I will send these certificates to you off the air, and I might ask, where is that? I don't know, you off the air. So we'll connect there maybe, but thank you so much, my friend, and congratulations also on the engagement, and look forward to watching you in the ring this weekend and very soon.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, none other than Mr. Rad Dad, Radley Belmont. Once upon a time, he was Rad Hazard, the host of the Global Backyard Wrestling News. He was later a part of the Radical Movement. He was the GBYWN Pure Champion. He was also the U.S. Champion. He was also a man at the center of a movement that is now today. You've also seen him in GTS. He's been the GTS Intercontinental Champion, Wrestle Grim, with the most live views and impressions on any GTS show in history, 3,000 plus. You've also seen him wrestle the Rock and Roll Express and the who's who of other people in the independent circuit. You can also check him out here coming up September 28th and 29th in the GBYWN reunion show in Pittsburgh. Rick will be on here for that. I can almost rest assured on that. So we'll talk about Rad Dad here, that and some. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. If you're on Sportswire Radio, you're going to go back to your regular scheduled programming. If you're on YouTube, Gabe's here tomorrow, so you won't want to miss that. And until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio, where all